Mission number 10. Let me see everybody take out their mission statements. This should have been completed between last class on Friday, over the weekend, before today. And as always, we start with our wonderful 10-4, our 10-4. Somebody remind us again what the 10-4 is. What activities are we doing in the 10-4? Contacts, note cards.
Properties.
I heard previews over here.
10 newbies. 10
New contacts. Yeah, and then where are we adding them? Database, right?
Yep.
So how did everybody do over the weekend? Who wants to share with us their numbers from the last 2 days, Saturday and Sunday? Who added 10 contacts to their database?
Yeah.
Nobody? Nobody's adding contacts.
Not 10.
Not full 10.
Okay, how many did we get?
I got 6.
Where did you guys get 5 and 6 from?
Jim.
The gym? Okay.
Yep. I got it that way my girlfriend works.
Thank you.
Okay. Sphere of influence, referrals. Cody?
Out and about.
What's that?
Places. Just out and about.
Out and about?
Stores, stuff like that.
Yeah, you're pretty intentional about talking to people wherever you go, right?
Yeah.
Cody's a social butterfly. Wherever he is, he's talking to people. I love it. All right, remember, the most important thing you can be doing at this point is growing your database. Starting with your sphere of influence, people you already know, people who are already in your phone, on your Facebook, wherever you have them. It's building and adding to it every day while you systematically touch those people that are already in your database. Right? Are we all becoming a little bit more familiar with command? Yeah. Just like anything, it's new technology. You're not going to know how to use it until you get in there and you use it. So the more proficient you become with it, the more it's going to save you time and energy. All right, moving right along. Practice scripts with a partner. Who practiced their scripts over the weekend? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Most of us. Now raise your hand if you have a scripts partner. Now by this time I should be seeing every single person's hand, maybe with the exception of Melody. Because I know we've talked about script partners every single class in here, and how important it is, right? Cody, what was your conversation like with your script partner over the weekend?
I call him. He's in Florida.
He's in Florida?
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Vicky? You didn't do it. Who had their hand up? Lee, why don't you tell us about your conversation?
Well, just same scripts. I was actually talking to Dan.
Oh, perfect. Called this morning?
Yeah. 7:15.
7:15? How many days a week do you guys do that?
Well, we just started last week, and he actually set us up, so we've done it 3 or 4 times.
Yep, and you called him?
Yep.
He goes first and he calls it.
You go right in your script, right?
Bam. Get right into it.
Flies right into
Right
it.
into it.
Perfect. And then you reset, and then Dan goes,
Got it.
and then you guys give each other feedback.
Exactly right.
Things that worked well, things that could use improvement.
Yep.
Excellent. That's exactly what you and your script partner should be doing on a routine basis. 2, 3, 4 days a week. 5 days a week. Every single day. Monday through Friday.
I do it 5 days a week.
5 days a week.
Good morning.
I did mine at 8 o'clock on my drive-in.
5 days a week, and she's been in real estate a very long time. I'll let
13 years.
I'll let Ann give you the whole spiel when she gets started. 13 years, and she still does scripts 5 days a week. So given that you have a few months or weeks or maybe a year, might it benefit you to practice scripts? Tools for the tool belt, right?
Do you do scripts? Rockstar right there, you guys.
5 days a week.
Less than 2 years in, killing it. Started out to a career. That one. If y'all want to pick somebody's brain, see that girl's name. It's Kelly. Track her down. Take her to lunch. Here's one of my clients.
All right, guys, quick reminder. When is the next Ignite class?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Why is it tomorrow?
We got the meeting.
What meeting is on Wednesday? All partners. Who is invited to all partners? All partners. So it's in here at 8:30 or 9? 9. in here at 9 on Wednesday, all partners. Tomorrow, we have Ignite, session 11, in the PC classroom. 8:30 sharp. Okay? Tomorrow, Tuesday, 8:30 in the PC classroom for Ignite session 11.
And then on Thursday.
And then what do we have Thursday? Thank you, Ann. Bold. Check it out. 9-time Bold participant. Miss Ann Chiquette, on that very positive note, I will turn it over to you. Enjoy. I'll see you all after class.
Thanks, Joe. All right, good morning, everybody. Really excited to be here for Ignite. Has the sign-in sheet gone around? Everybody sign in? We got 7 names on there. Who's not in? All right. Briefly, just that this will help me out as we go through this class. I'm going to have you all tell me your name, how long you've been in business, and whether you have any transactions under your belt. My name is Ann Chiquette. It's spelled like that. It's pronounced like that. And I run a team here at Keller Williams called Main Dream Properties. We're located on the 2nd floor, across from the men's room. Stop by and say hi. 6 people on my team right now, and like Joe said, I've been in the business 13 years. I'm a 5-time Bold grad, 5 times in 3 years. So I came to Keller Williams 3 years ago in December, so a little over 3 years. Welcome, good morning. And yeah, last year I took Bold twice, spring and fall. So let's see. Fall of 15, fall of 16, fall of 17, fall of 18, and last spring, so 5 times. I'll be there Thursday if you have any of you taken Bold? If you haven't taken Bold, hold on, it's a game changer. I was at a different company when I first took Bold, and the lovely Dottie Bow invited me, and I hadn't even met her, didn't even know who she was, and she called me up and invited me, and I went. And within a week, I was at Keller Williams after Bold was over. And the year I came to Keller Williams, my business grew 92%. 92% in 1 year after 10 years in the business. It's almost double. So it was awesome. Can you pass that sign-in sheet over, please? Thank you. And that's enough about me. If you guys have questions about me, catch me on the break or catch me afterwards. This is being recorded for the annals. So we're going to dive in after y'all just give me a brief name, whether you're on a team or a solo agent, how long you've been doing it, and what do you got for transactions. Let's just start over here.
Victoria Bedard. I've been here about a month. Solo and no transactions yet.
Okay.
Cody Zeller. I've been here for about 2 months. I'm not on a team, no transactions.
Okay.
Lee Grant, I've been here about a month. I'm actually lucky enough to work with Main Dream Properties.
My name's Dan Hughes. I got licensed January 11th. I have no transactions and about 3 clients.
3 clients signed. Nice.
And
Buyers? Sorry, buyers.
Buyers, yeah.
Melody Heath. I have been here like 2 weeks maybe.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
No transactions, obviously.
And you're a solo agent?
Yeah.
Okay.
Paul Foster. I've been here about a month. I have due to have a transaction on April 26th.
A closing?
Yeah.
Wow, and you've been here a month.
Yep.
And you've got a
I
closing
got
in
my
3 weeks.
license in December, but
Okay.
I really didn't get started with Keller Williams until the first day of Ignite.
And you're a solo agent?
Yes, but I'm working pretty closely with Rick Dow. He's thinking
Wow.
about making a team down the road. And,
Love Rick Dow.
and, yeah.
And you've got a closing happening in 3 weeks.
Well, it was, I can't take too much credit
Well,
for it.
take
It
it.
just fell in my lap.
Wow.
I'm being totally honest here. It
All right.
absolutely dropped out of the sky. Boom.
It's exciting. So you've done some negotiating.
Yep.
Because today's class is about negotiation.
Karen Bowe, no transactions. Day 1 of week 3.
Day 1, week 3. All right.
Alan Taylor. I've been here for about 6 weeks. I started
Thank
here in
you.
February. I sold my first house in 8 hours last week. We closed on May 17th. And at my open house yesterday, I met a seller buyer and made an appointment.
So you got your first listing.
Got my first listing.
Put it under contract
Put
in
it on
8
the
hours.
market Wednesday morning at noon. counter can offer that many, so counter to the negotiations was awesome.
So you listed a house and had it under contract within a day.
Yeah, which is good.
How many offers? Did you get more than one offer? You don't have to tell me how many.
I got a second offer later, and I asked her if she wanted to be a backup, and I haven't heard back from her, so I'm assuming.
So it's already talking backup offers. That's fun, isn't it? I did one of those.
Negotiations was fun. I got
Yeah.
to find an extra $3,100.
That's awesome.
My name is Tracy Chicoine. I've been here 3 weeks. I'm a solo agent, no transactions.
Okay, all right. So you guys are just in the perfect space to be here. And you all have been in Ignite, or some of you have been through part of Ignite and you haven't been to all the classes. So this is session number 10 out of 12. Negotiate the deal. So theoretically, you've already signed a buyer, or taken a listing at this point in your Ignite career, you know, like in the class, not in real life. So that's where we're at. There's your action reveal. You just did that with Joe. Good morning. As I was just mentioning, the woman who made me I was like, okay. Comment? I have a meeting, but I just wanted to say hello. Hello, we're taping. The lovely Dottie Bowe is here, you guys. Dottie. Morning.
Morning.
So we're just getting started. Everybody just told us who they are. And we're digging into negotiation. So you guys did all that with Joe. Okay. So who watched the video that was in your mission that I put on Facebook in 2 different groups to make sure you all watched it before you came here? This is awesome. So many times I teach this class and nobody has watched that video, and we use that video with the agent talking to the seller about the chandelier, and then the 2 agents negotiating an offer on that house, and of course what comes up in the negotiation. The chandelier, right? And it always does. I'm telling you, I've had it happen. So that's a very realistic video. So thank you for watching that. I appreciate that. When we talk about negotiation, first of all, how many of you have children? Have you ever negotiated with your kids? Are they great negotiators or what? Right? They're always. So in real estate, we are negotiating at what point in the process? Name 2 or 3 different times when you might be negotiating.
Once you get the offer all the way through,
When you get an offer,
and you can negotiate when you do the inspections or something.
and you can negotiate when you do the inspections. Yes. Can you think of another time? Who told me that they've already signed a buyer? Was there any negotiation involved around that?
Yeah, I mean, you want them to feel comfortable with it.
You want your buyer to feel comfortable?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, for sure.
So when they sign that buyer rep agreement, did you negotiate with your buyer about anything?
As far as like what they're looking for, fees.
Your fee? Did you negotiate that fee? Do you have a fee on the second page of your?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we actually negotiate with our clients before we negotiate for our clients. Does that make sense? When you're taking a listing, you've taken a listing.
Yep.
Did you negotiate with your seller when you took that listing?
Yes, because she wanted to list it for 10 or 15 grand more than it, and we had to explain to her that, well, Rick had to explain to her that we wanted to come in at a price point just under 200,000. Otherwise, we would have missed all kinds of viewers on the internet.
So how'd that negotiation go?
It went well. She understood it, but then we got an offer so quickly that she started rethinking the whole thing, thinking that she was right, and we should have listed it for 10 or 15 grand more. So we had to talk her off of that,
the ledge.
and she's all right.
And you negotiated a commission in your listing agreement.
Yeah.
Right? So as real estate agents, negotiating is what sets us apart from the rest, really. If you can master negotiating skills, You're going to have more success signing buyers for the fee that you want to work for or intend to work for. You're going to have more success taking listings, and then you're going to have more success on behalf of your client negotiating the best deal for them. Because in the end, our job is to negotiate for a seller the best price in the right amount of time, and for a buyer, the best price in the right amount of time. Agreed? Yeah, so that's what today's all about. Okay, so I think you're on page is it 12 in your book?
Negotiating tips.
Negotiating tips. So when you're thinking about negotiating, and you can, keep an open mind, you can think about negotiating as a buyer agent with your potential buyer, think about negotiating as a listing agent with your potential seller, and think about negotiating on behalf of a seller, on behalf of a buyer. So what are some of the points of negotiation in these different scenarios? Anybody? Please.
You just don't wanna have too much attachment to the outcome, no matter what.
Don't have attachment to the outcome. So you've been reading. That's awesome, and that's very true. What are some of the other okay, I'm jumping ahead. I'm thinking of points of negotiation. So tips on negotiation. Don't be attached to the outcome. I'm probably going to write that one down because that comes up over and over. So y'all taking notes? Don't be attached. To the outcome. So Sean Kokoska, was he in that video that you all watched?
Yep.
Yes.
Do you love him? You know,
Yeah.
he's Diana Kokoska's son.
Yeah.
He was one of the kids in the Little Red Wagon, if you hear the Red Wagon story. So how often does he talk about don't be attached to the outcome?
Every time he speaks.
Do we get passionate about our clients and their transaction? Say yes.
Yes.
So passionate. We want this for them so badly. How attached can we get to this transaction and this negotiation? So attached. Don't get attached, because ultimately your role is to keep the deal together when possible. And if you're too emotionally attached, maybe the deal needs to terminate. And oh my gosh, you've got a mortgage payment to make and you were really counting on that commission, and you might push to get that closing through when it's not in the best interest of your client. Do you push to close it if it's not in the best interest of your client? No, because you cannot be attached to the outcome, right? So important. Please, write that down and take that with you for the rest of your career, because we get tempted and we get caught up in our own story and our own needs, and we come last, right? Okay. Negotiation tips. Be professional. What does it mean to be professional?
Keep emotion out of it.
Keep emotion out of it. So bold law, keep your emotion between the lines. Easy to get emotional and get wound up, because again, you've got relationships with this buyer or this seller, and you feel for them and you want what they want. Because how many have taken the DISC profile? Are you high eyes? Anybody in here know what your DISC is and if you're a high eye? No? Okay. Well, if you're a high eye, like me and most agents, you care really deeply about your seller and your buyer. And so if they're passionate about the chandelier, you might get a little passionate about the chandelier, right? And you could get a little heated with the other agent. I've had an agent send me a not very nice text using a bad word, and I was kind of appalled and I'm like, whoa, this is work. Be professional, okay? Don't be that emotional screaming agent.
That's what I noticed in the video. I've been in sales for a long time, but that's what I know. I didn't think that the guy really had stuck up for his client and his and their chandelier.
His chandelier.
To the other agent.
Dave.
But that is getting attached to
the listing agent.
Yeah,
right.
I was like, wow, this is something that, you know, you do have to kind of cool it down, you know, especially because you
Right.
wanna you're gonna work with that agent again sometime.
Exactly.
And if you're gonna be putting, you know, a price out there or whatever, if you're gonna be negotiating with them in the future, you don't want them to just check you off like, no.
Exactly. And here's one of the great things about being at Keller Williams Realty. We have, 480, 500 agents right here in our office, and we become friends with them. And, they're right down the hall or across the hall, and we're at all partners with them, and we're doing fun things. We're serving on committees with them. And you don't want to get into a screaming match with one of them. You're going to feel like you have to see them at the hall and at all partners meeting. And then if you take that mentality about these great win-win relationships we have with each other, and you take that to other agencies, I have agents at Friends all over the city. Agents who are friends at Bean Group, Remax, like Colo Banker, right? You're not going to burn any bridges with them because you're going to see them at realtor events. You're going to do more transactions with them. You're going to maybe, invite them to come to classes at Keller Williams. And you don't want to have them being text on your phone to them or from them. No. So be professional. He could have gotten really heated and said, no, we told you the chandelier was not conveying. Right? Like, would that have been professional? No. So keep it professional. Control what you say to anybody involved in the transaction. If you create anxiety, so I've seen and heard agents create anxiety in their clients by going, oh, that other agent is just being such a pill, and then you get your client all worked up about that agent. It's not fun. Right? That's not your job. Your job is to be professional. Okay, so the other side is asking for the chandelier. Now, I know that you said the chandelier does not convey, and yes, we were very clear about that. And did he say, I told you so? No. He said, we knew this might happen, right? And you have some options here. You can not accept the contract. You can, reject the contract because of the chandelier. Or you can counter the contract and say, we're going to take the chandelier, and the rest of your offer is fine. You can counter the buyer and say, we're going to take the chandelier, and because we're taking the chandelier, we'll give you a credit, or we'll buy you a new chandelier. Like, you just spell out the options. Our job is always to just spell out the options. Every time I talk to a seller or a buyer in the middle of a transaction, when there's a counteroffer of any type going on, I just always say, these are your options. And I mean, like, this is so rote, I can do this in my sleep. You can accept, reject, ignore, or counter. Accept, reject, ignore, or counter. And then I always say, I would hope you wouldn't ignore it. Of course, you have the right to reject it, and that might spur them to make a better offer, or it might cease all conversation, If they're not going to accept it, I always encourage them to counter, because it's a conversation. A negotiation is a conversation. Let's say that. A negotiation is a conversation, right? It's back and forth. It's a conversation. It's a dialogue. And you are the phone wires, basically. So the seller, the buyer, don't talk to each other. They talk to each other through the two agents who become the phone wires. Be a good phone wire. Don't be a staticky phone wire, right? Be a good communicator and be kind. And, the Y4C2Ts at Keller Williams, y'all know the Y4C2Ts? Win-win or no deal is the first one. So we're going to start posting those around the room here. And if you're interested in learning more, come to the culture committee meetings. So Y4C2Ts, this comes from Keller Williams International or Mo Anderson. Win-win or no deal. So we are always looking for a win-win, and we're going to do that in this class today. It's going to be so much fun. Always refer back to motivation in a negotiation. So I'm going to go ahead and make this orange. How many of you are going bold on Thursday? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you're not planning to take bold this spring, please go to the free Step 1 on Thursday. It's free. And even if you only attend one out of those 7 bold classes, you'll take away some gold nuggets. When you get further into bold and when you get further into your scripts that you're using, you'll see that when we're talking to sellers and buyers, we're always getting back to their motivation. Right? And when you're negotiating with your kids, you might be referring to their motivation. I know you don't want to clean your room. However, if you want to go to the basketball game Saturday night, you have to clean your room. Right? I just referred to my son's motivation to get him to clean his room. The basketball game is going to make him clean his room because he's not going to clean it any other reason. At his 17th. So with our buyers and our sellers, if you always refer to their motivation, you know, remember you really want to be in Colorado by July. That means we have to get your house on the market by May. So I understand that, you know, you're not ready to paint that door or whatever it is, but you know, you work back for them and then you remind them what their goal is and then you put a time frame on it and it helps them. You know, because they're all bogged down in their own stuff. And our job is to just clear out the stuff and make them focus on their motivation. So just remind them. You're doing them a favor. It's not manipulative. You're reminding them of their motivation to help them, keep them focused on their goals. Right? Don't we all do better work when we're focused on our goals? So as a professional and an advisor, our job is to keep our clients focused on their goals. Listen more than you talk. If you're a high I, like me, that might be hard. And yeah, you can learn. Because you're listening for clues, motivation, objections. They're going to throw objections at you. And when you're practicing your scripts with your script partner 5 days a week, you're going to practice objection handlers, right? Do you have a list of objection handlers yet? So objection handlers, you know, oh, I'd like to list with you, but the other agent said they'd do it for 4%. There's an objection handler for that. I can understand that you want to net the most money, right? Do you know that I, on average, get my sellers 100% of list price, and most other agents only get 96% of list price, and so by listing with me, you're likely to get 4% more than you're going to get with the other agent. So would you like to list at 6% or 7%? That's an objection handler. So when you're talking to your clients, whether you're negotiating for a listing agreement, a buyer agreement, or on their behalf, listen to their motivation. Listen for motivation, listen for objections, and listen to understand. That's another one of the Y4C2Ts, to understand. And then you can respond appropriately. Because if we're just thinking about how we're going to respond, we're going to miss hearing what they're telling us. Does that make sense? Okay. So be a good listener. Don't be attached to the outcome. You got that right up front. And remember what your goal is when you are in negotiation. What's your goal? Get a signed contract. I'll make this colorful. Here's the goal. Sign contract. Because this is a class on negotiation. When you're in a negotiation, the goal is a signed contract or an amended contract if we're negotiating during inspections, after inspections, right? So, can a deal fall apart during inspections? Yeah. What are you going to negotiate? Why are you negotiating at that point? To keep the deal together, keep it moving forward. Is the contract probably going to change after inspections? Yeah. Almost always. Almost always. Plan on it. Tell your clients. Tell your sellers. There's going to be inspections. They're probably going to ask for something. You know, you don't want your sellers to go, oh my gosh, they asked for something? Really? Thought they were going to pay this and, you know, we're good. If they're going to do inspections, they're probably going to ask for something. Let's be prepared. So that's communication, and you're going to negotiate it, and the goal at the end is a signed amendment, which if you took the contract amendment and addenda class, We use the ICA, Investigation Contingency Amendment, to amend contracts when we're through the process. So your goal at the end of that is a signed ICA. Your goal when you're meeting with a buyer is a signed buyer rep agreement. Your goal when you're meeting with a seller is a signed listing agreement. Your goal when you're negotiating an offer or counter offer is a contract, right? So this is all about contracts. Because when we get contracts, what happens in our life? Happens in our life as a real estate agent when we have a contract.
Goes on hold.
You're one step closer to getting paid though.
You get paid. You get money. Like, this is not a volunteer job, right? So we want contracts because contracts lead to income for us. Now, you know, income is not our only motivation. We're in it to help families. And yet, it isn't volunteer work. So, okay, now we jump to the common points of negotiation. This is page 13. There's a list here of a bunch of things. What's the number one thing that we are usually negotiating? What's the number one
Price.
thing? Price, right? Whether it's the listing price, whether it's your buyer fee, or whether it's the contract price to sell a property, right? It's usually about price. Is that the only thing that we negotiate? Price. No, terms. Okay, so in Maine, we call conveyances, we don't really refer to them as conveyances, we call it personal property. Paragraph in your purchase and sale, there's fixtures and then there's personal property. Paragraph 4. But closing costs, so that's going to be in paragraph 14 on your purchase and sale. That's where if it's subject to financing or not subject to financing, and the seller shall pay X amount towards buyer's closing costs. I've even seen the buyer pay X amount towards the seller's closing costs. Right? Not typical. Could it be done? Could. You got a seller that's in distress, and if they don't get some help on the closing costs, they're not going to be able to sell. The buyer might pay some of their closing costs, right? So closing costs, closing date. What do we assume for a closing date? When do all sellers want to sell?
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible.
When it benefits them.
When it benefits them. We don't know. Trick question. Some sellers, I have a seller right now, they're like, no, we don't want to close until July 1st. Even if we get an offer tomorrow, we need to be here till July 1st. So sometimes as buyer agents, we assume that a sooner closing is better. I just had multiple offers on a listing last week, and we had one, offer that came in, they wanted to close in 30 days, 30 calendar days, and we had one that wanted to close in 2 months, and in the end, I went back to the one that wanted to close early, and I said, why do they want to close so fast? Oh, well, we thought that was what the seller wanted. And I said, well, you didn't ask me what the seller wanted. The seller wants to close the end of May. So you could counter on that. Or a great thing, we're going to talk about this a little later, call the agent. If you're going to make an offer on a listing, call them, go, what's their preferred closing date? So we can write a strong offer. Can the listing agent tell you that? Yes. In a perfect world, they would close on May 22nd. Communicate that before you write the offer. Don't make assumptions. It's powerful.
What's a normal, average?
Well, so most lenders, struggle to close in 30 days. Typical is 45. I mean, Tamika and her crowd, they can often close in 30 days. I've had closings in 8 days.
Wow.
Under contract on Saturday, close the next Monday, or 9 days, whatever that was.
So they finish their due diligence even.
No due diligence, cash, there's closings
Okay.
that happen like that.
Okay, yeah.
I've had several of them, right? So there's not always inspections. There's not always financing. Some people can close in a week. So, with financing, it's usually at least 30 days. 45 is safe, depending on how the appraisers are running, because that will bog it down. So closing date, this is huge, you guys. Circle that in your book, because so many people forget that that's a real pain point for sellers sometimes. Sometimes they need to close soon, and sometimes they can't. So figure it out and just communicate it, right? Does that make sense? It's awesome. Like, use that one. When so many times we get so bogged down on price, and I've seen sellers take a lower price because they like the closing date better. Right? Everybody's got different priorities. Conveyances, so that's personal property, and rights, I guess. So a conveyance could not just be, well, in here they're talking about personal property, but you could also convey, like I had a listing last fall, they conveyed a mooring, because it was a waterfront thing, and they had like all the chains and the buoy and I don't know, whatever's involved with the mooring, right? And the right to have the mooring, you still had to get a permit in the harbor, but sometimes the permit was transferable or something like that in an association, so you could convey something like that. You know, it's not just a refrigerator or a range or curtains or whatever. And if you took the buyer document class last week with Helen, any of you take that? There's handouts over there. So, you know, you gotta memorize that purchase and sale. All the paragraphs, right? Fixtures are things that are more or less permanently affixed to the house. Is a built-in dishwasher a fixture or a personal property? It's a fixture. It's screwed to the countertop. It's plumbed in and it's electrified, right? It's a fixture. A built-in microwave is a fixture. You don't have to write those in personal property because they convey as fixtures. A range that you could unplug and slide out, it's personal property. Refrigerator, personal property, unless it's like a Sub-Zero that's built in, then that's a fixture, right? Curtain rods, shades, those are specifically in the fixtures. Personal properties are conveyances, you know, like maybe you're gonna leave the portable generator will convey, the washer and dryer, the shed, that's a movable shed, that's personal property, that could convey or it might not convey.
Fuel is a big one too. I countered that I wanted my buyer to pay for the fuel in the tank if the house had sold. That's a big one. Because 250 gallons of number 2 oil in your basement in the tank is a big.
Several $100.
Yeah, it's a big conveyance.
Right. So, and we actually have a checkbox on our purchase and sale, yet the fuel shall be prorated or shall not be prorated. So that's a conveyance too. Yeah, and that can, in a multiple offer situation, have them pay for the fuel. That's gonna go on the spreadsheet when you make a multiple offer spreadsheet. Earnest money and the option fee. So on our contract, we have 2 spots for earnest money, one just after or before the contract is agreed to, and then a lot of times there's a second one, and that could be upon satisfaction of inspections or something like that. For some people, it's really important. There's a local broker that I work with a lot, and a second earnest money deposit after inspections is very important to him. If I ever write an offer on one of his properties, I always use that.
I don't understand that. What's the 2? Why 2?
So in a purchase and sale, it'll say, you know, seller has deposited or shall deposit within 2, buyer shall deposit or will or has deposited, you know, a sum of $5,000, and a second earnest money deposit of blank shall be deposited blank. And a lot of times that's as soon as they sign off on inspections, within 1 day of signing off on paragraph 12, something like that, they'll give you another $5,000 or $50,000 or whatever, right? And, you know, technically it's supposed to be non-refundable at that point, unless there's any other contingency in there. That can get tricky. However, there is a broker who loves 2 deposits, and if you write a contract like that, he's going to help you get it accepted. So you start to learn what's important to people. Ultimately, it's up to the buyer and the seller. So that can be a powerful thing. Option fee. Repairs. So most offers are contingent on the outcomes of the home inspection and necessary repairs. Depending on the complexity of the repairs, buyers may ask the seller to make repairs prior to closing, deduct the repair cost from the sale price, or pay a lump sum to cover the closing costs. So when you negotiate repairs, does it have to be done after inspections?
No, you have a time.
Like during inspection?
Yes,
right.
You want to do it then, say this is what we need.
Right. So you go, you inspect the house, you find out it's got rotten sills, whatever. You come back with your ICA and you ask for repairs, right? Could you negotiate repairs at the time you write the original offer.
Yes.
Sure.
If you already know that something is wrong with the house, you go to look at a house and there's 3 cracked window panes. It's an antique house built in the 1800s. Then there's, these little panes, right? And 2 of them have these cracks in them. And you see that when you first go to the house. Are you gonna wait until inspections and come back and go, oh, and we want you to repair those?
What's the best negotiating tool for that?
That's a great question. So if the defects are already there, and maybe they disclosed them, right? If they've disclosed them, and you know that they're there, and you put it under contract, and then you come back after inspections and you go, oh, and we want you to fix those 3 broken window panes. If I'm the listing agent, I'm gonna say, you knew they were there.
Yeah.
Why are you asking for that now? Because you just wrote a contract saying that the house will be delivered in the same shape that it was in on the day that you saw it, and those windows were broken on the day that you saw it. Probably not gonna win that negotiation as the buyer, right? Win-win, sorry. So go ahead and put them in right up front. Okay, we're willing to buy this house as we saw it, and then in paragraph 26, seller shall replace the 3 broken window panes at least 10 days prior to closing, or something like that. Right up front. If you know that there's a carpet that's all frayed or needs to be stretched, and you want the seller to do that before closing, don't wait until inspect. Put that in right up front. Be honest, right? Try to slip something in after the inspections if you already knew about it. Make sense? So you can do repairs right up front. More common after inspections. Any questions on that? Okay, here we go. Have you heard the 3 Ps before in any of these other Ignite classes? No? Okay. Keller Williams education, really big on the 3 Ps. So when we negotiate, have any of you done the listing presentation, Diana Kokoska's listing presentation? Mr. and Mrs. Seller, most agents do the 3 Ps. They place a sign in the yard, they put it in the multiple listing service, and they pray that somebody else sells it. And I do the 4th P, which is prospect. Proactively prospect daily for buyers for your property. So here's the 3 Ps approach to negotiation, because we're all about the 3 Ps. Prepare, present, and position. So that's what we're going to do in this class today. Like I said, I'm doing a ton of talking right now, so thank you for listening. We are going to get super interactive. I'm glad this is a big class, because y'all are going to pair up, and we're going to do some negotiating, and it's going to be super fun. So you're going to prepare to negotiate. You're going to present offers and counteroffers, and then you're going to position, which is the back and forth. That's the positioning. Like, does that make sense? Offer, no, counteroffer, 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 win-win. That's what we call positioning. Does that make sense? If you're visual learners, hopefully that makes sense. So we're going to dig right into preparing. So before you can negotiate anything, whether you're negotiating to sign a buyer, negotiating to sign a listing, or negotiating on behalf of your buyer or your seller to get a house or sell a house, you got to prepare. Don't just go in, oh, no, yeah, oh, you want to buy a house? Okay, let's talk. No, you're going to prepare. You're going to have your buyer rep agreement filled out. You're going to know what your fee is. You're going to have some scripts prepared around your fee. Why should I pay you 3%? So-and-so said they'll do it for 2.4. I don't know, like whatever. You've got to prepare, right? Why would I pay you 7% to list my house when this guy over here will do it for a flat fee of $1,000, right? You got to prepare going into those negotiations. When you are presenting an offer on behalf of your buyer, you're going to prepare. How are you going to prepare? I just gave you a hint about 5 minutes ago. What's one thing you can do to prepare to represent your buyer at a high level when you know they want to buy this house?
Let them know what's coming, like in negotiations, if you were saying that the negotiations would change after inspection. Prepare them for.
Prepare them, very good, yes. So let them know that, you know, you're gonna get another chance to do inspections and there may be another negotiation then, set that expectation, that's great. What else can you do to prepare to write an offer?
Talk with the listing agent.
Yeah.
Talk with the listing agent, what kind of a conversation might you have with the listing agent?
As to what the, just rephrasing what you said is, in a perfect world, what would your seller want?
Okay, write that down, you guys. If your seller could choose any closing date, what would that be? Great question to ask your co-broke. I'm gonna call the other agent your co-broke, okay? Which stands for cooperating broker. And cooperation, isn't that a nice word? Does that kinda like go along with win-win? That's weird, cooperating. So here's a great thing. When a buyer agent asks you that, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what their favorite closing date is. I should probably ask them, right? As the listing agent, should you know that?
Yeah, right.
Should you have had that conversation at the time you listed their house? So this is what I would say to my sellers. So, when I sell your house in 30 days, do you have a place to go? Like, I ask that question every time, and they laugh, and I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like, we could potentially sell your house in 30 days. Do you have a place to go?
Do they get scared?
Well, we do, we can, my sister's got a garage apartment, and we could live there for a while. We don't really want to, but we could. For the right offer, we would. Okay, so now you know that they can, right? Do they want to? No. So what's the next great question I can ask my seller to help prepare to negotiate for them?
You want to buy something. Are they looking to buy?
I love it, yeah. Do you want to buy something? Let me help you buy something. No, they're going to move to Florida, but they're not going to move until June. But they want to get their house on the market now, and if their house sells the 1st of May, do they have a place to go? Mm-hmm. Yes, we could rent for a month, stay with my sister. What's the next great question I should ask them?
What's the perfect time for you to have like to sell?
If you could pick any closing date, what closing date would you pick? What's your ideal closing date? I'd love to ask them that question. Look, I'm expecting multiple offers on your house. Some of these buyer agents are smart and they're calling me to ask me what your preferred closing date is. If you could pick any closing date, what closing date would it be? And then you just stop talking. Like I said, for me that's hard. And I do it. So this happened to me recently. Like, we had the 30-day conversation. They were like, yeah, we're gonna go to Wyndham and stay in my sister's garage apartment. And then the offers started coming in. And they're like, oh, we don't want to close in 30 days. We don't want to live in the garage apartment, right? So I said, if you got all these offers, you can probably pick your closing date. What's that going to be? Well, maybe the 3rd week of May. I'm like, okay, the 22nd, 26th. What's the 3rd week of May mean to you, right? So they go, we want to close on May 30th. Okay, thank you. I'm going to tell all these agents that ask me that you want to close on May 30th. So guess what happens?
Clear.
Multiple offer situation. What are all these smart agents doing in their buyer's offer?
They're putting it in there.
Putting May 30th in there because they know that that's the ideal closing date. That makes their offer stronger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I get to come to my sellers with a bunch of offers that are all wanting to close on May 30th. Kind of evens the playing field. And then they get to look at the other terms. And then the closing date's not an issue. Unless there's that one that, no, we really have to be in by May 12th or we can't buy it. And next, right? So this is preparing, right? So do we prepare to accept offers for our clients? Do we prepare to present offers for our clients?
Yes.
So it's all preparing. Think ahead, know your clients, set clear expectations. So this is what you said prior to meeting with the other party, set clear and realistic expectations with your client. Under promise, over deliver. Can't promise you I can get you somebody that'll close on May 30th, but if we got you May 20th, would that be okay? Right? I'm going to work really hard with, negotiating this for you to get you May 30th, because that's what you have just told me that you want. And if I can't, would you be okay with May 15th or whatever? Like, set the expectations, have the conversations. Negotiating is just a really powerful communication, conversation, right? So write that down. Negotiation is a conversation. It's a powerful conversation. Be informed. Before making an offer or counteroffer, it's good to practice to speak with 2 other agents. Okay, so this is geared, I think, towards Ignite students. Is this in your book? So be informed?
Yeah. Top of page 15.
Yeah. Good practice to speak with 2 other agents. Ask open-ended questions and use active listening to find out as much as you can about the other party and their agent. This helps you know with whom you're negotiating, on what points you'll negotiate, and where you and your client have leverage. Okay. I'm going to come back to that one. Obey the laws, obviously. Do we need to go over that very much? No. And know the documents inside and out. If you don't know these documents inside and out, go on Zip Forms, study them. This is the class that was taught the other day on buyer documents. It's got compensation agreements. It's got the purchase and sale. It's got the ICA, which is also taught in the addendum class that I teach. It's got your disclosure, purchase and sale, buyer rep agreement, all that stuff. You need to know what those documents say. You don't need to be lawyers. You need to be intelligent, educated people who have read the contracts that you're about to ask people to sign. So, and the contracts change every January. They do.
A lot?
No, but just enough, just to throw us off. Every January they update the documents. It's like, oh my gosh, this is a 2-page document now? I mean, our property disclosure just went from 3 pages to 7. I'm like, oh. You know, I used to say, oh, heating, that's on page 2. Now I'm like, I don't know where it is. I'm still getting to know it, right? However, I can tell you that paragraph 4 is personal property, and I can tell you that paragraph 12 is due diligence, and I can tell you that paragraph 14 is financing, and I can tell you that paragraph 25 is addenda, and paragraph 26 is blank. Name yourself. You know, I know you know the purchase and sale after you've written a bunch of contracts, right? So know them and read them before you go in to have your buyer fill out a purchase and sale. Know what the questions are going to be. Closing date, earnest money, second earnest money. You know, there's a lot of blanks in there that we have to fill out. Fuel proration, no fuel proration, like those are all in there. Septic in a coastal shoreline zone, like, I mean, they're all in there, right? So know the documents. Now let's go back to be informed. Before making an offer or counteroffer, it's good practice to speak with 2 or more agents. So I don't think this is geared towards me. Like, if I'm going to make an offer for one of my buyers, I'm not going to go get people's opinion. So the only thing I can think is this is geared towards new people. So Rick Dow, my buddy Rick Dow, love Rick Dow. Love you, Rick. Called me once and he said, hey, I'm in a multiple offer situation. You know, he didn't give away too much information, right? And the other agent is XYZ, this agent that I happened to work with for 10 years. And he knew that I knew him. And he's like, anything I should know? What should I know about working with this guy? And I'm like, oh gosh. He likes the second earnest money deposit, you know, and make it big. And he's like, really? I never would have thought to do that. And I'm like, get a second earnest money deposit one day after inspections. He's like, okay. So then he called me up. He's like, I did the second earnest money deposit. We got the we got it. Like, we won, right? So, like, that was smart. He was new. I was old. He asked me a great question about a very specific agent, and I was able to tell him what I knew about that agent. You know, so I think that's what it means. And as new agents, obviously, you're not going to write an offer or accept an offer, negotiate an offer without talking to somebody, Joe or somebody, right? I think that's what it means. In the general life of your business, when you get ready to present an offer, you're not going to go poll a bunch of agents and ask them what they think, because you can't. You know, you can be vague. You can't give specifics about any contract unless it's your designated broker or one of the designees. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. Here we go. Here's the fun part. Okay. 2, 4, 6, 8. Somebody coming back?
Yeah. 2,
4. Is there somebody there?
No.
That's you. Okay. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Find a partner. You ready? You're gonna have to come down, bud.
Yeah, I was gonna go over there.
You're looking at him, okay. So, we're gonna read this scenario, and I want you to brainstorm with each other on this one, and then when we do the other activity, you're actually gonna be negotiating, so you're gonna stay in your partners. So right now, with your partner, we're gonna read this scenario, and then I want you to write down at least 5 points in your team of questions that you're gonna ask, right? Your goal is this. You gotta figure out some of that, and you gotta figure out some other things to prepare to negotiate for this lady, okay? Because it says her, so I'm gonna call her a lady. Anybody wanna give her a name? No. Let's call her Betty, Betty Byer, okay? You are representing Betty Byer. Your client is renting her present property. She's a renter. Like any first-time buyer, she's a first-time buyer. See how they're just throwing you little tidbits here. She's looking to you to guide her through the process because she doesn't know what she doesn't know what she doesn't know. She's a first-time buyer, she's a renter. The asking price of the home that she really loves is $175. The house appears to have evidence of a roof leak. It's listed as is. So when it's listed as is, what does that mean?
No changes.
What does that mean? Use a long sentence to describe what as is means.
We're not doing any work.
The seller's not going to do any work. As is. Seller is saying, not doing any work. Think that's true?
Not always.
No.
Not always. However, should you assume that, should you advise your client that that's what they're saying?
Yeah.
And it's correctly priced, even with the roof leak. Because maybe all fixed up, it's worth $250. I don't know. But $175 with a roof leak, it's a great price, in your opinion. Your client would like to keep her payments as low as possible. Is that part of her motivation?
No.
Since she still has a bunch of student loans to pay off. She wants to write an offer for $155. It's correctly priced at $175. And there's been quite a bit of activity on the listing. Does that mean there's multiple offers?
No.
No.
No, it means lots of people.
Activity, that's what we say. Oh, there's been so much activity. What do you have?
Well,
The
yeah,
offers?
what
Well,
does that
no,
mean?
but we have a lot of activity.
What could that mean?
People driving by.
means there's a lot of showings,
Yeah.
right? So, whatever that means, right? So, here's what preparing is. We're not going to negotiate this. We're going to get into this girl's head a little bit and figure out what we need to know from her in order to represent her at a high level. Okay? So you don't have a partner, you're on your own. Write down at least 3 questions. If you're in a pair, write down 5 questions between you, brainstorm. Some questions you need to get out of Betty Byer. You need to ask Betty Byer to get great information so that you can go to bat for her in this negotiation.
Yeah.
So if 155 is way short, I don't know how it affordable.
Well, I guess we're asking
To divide this particular house, so what, I'm sorry, how many?
How much, what is it that?
so that's a follow-up on
Yeah,
this.
I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, so if she could afford that one, yeah, right, that's always a big one. Yeah.
No intention of repairing.
What?
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, pretty good.
You guys come up with 5 questions per team? You guys have 5 between you that aren't duplicates? You guys are thinking on that.
Different than, so you're Kelly?
Yeah.
Because
Oh, okay.
maybe we could find another house.
Yeah, well, I'm going to close with this one. My numbers are great so far. My average days on market are 1, and my percent of list to sell is 104%. It was a small one. Next one's my dad's house. 4,000 square feet.
Me too.
10 Evergreen Lane. Shane's
Really,
Rock. We bought it.
That makes me feel better.
Since I got in.
That's what I just did.
Grab us some money. Yeah, right up.
I'm like, what do you want? You and still have your house there, is that what you want?
Your investment second, right? The first one was actually another neighbor.
Right, that's illegal.
Anyway, I'll text you after we get this done.
Okay,
All right,
you got 5?
so,
Well, 3 for you, because one is team.
for a buyer.
Every team.
So I need to go, you know the answer to some of that. First question, I didn't ask much, right? No, we didn't.
Just
To get right, that's what I thought.
Agree. Well, are you really sure?
This is just trying to pick the line where the woman's mind.
Yeah.
Third.
Come up with as many questions as you
We don't
want
want
to
to
ask.
Markets were, then it's very different,
Right.
right? If you look at 30 houses that maybe this
Keep asking questions.
then it's gonna be a very.
So, we're gonna get a bunch of questions. Those are good. Those are never.
Have you spoken to them? So that would be my question.
That's the question that you want.
My next one was.
Okay.
Now we kind of like.
You guys got at least 5 per team?
How are we looking at that? My last one, like,
Okay, who wants to read one of their questions first? So when the other people read their questions, if this isn't one of the questions that you have written down, write it down, okay? Let's go. Because we're brainstorming great conversation to have with your client, because it's all about
dialogue.
listening, finding their motivation, and getting as much information as you can so that you can go be a great advocate for that person. Okay, who's got a great question?
I would ask, when does your lease end?
When does your lease end? Very good. Why do you need to know that?
So you know when they wanna close, how
Yeah.
urgently they need to move.
And here's another question that tags onto that. Anybody have one of those that tags onto when does your lease end? She does.
Are you able to break your lease?
Are you able to break your lease? Can you get out early? Perfect. Love that. That's right on the LP Mama sheet that we use. Who else has a great question? Lee.
Have you spoke to a lender about any information on being a first time homeowner?
Have you spoken to a lender? You always gotta ask that question. You got that too? That's great. Okay.
That's a good one.
Who's got another one?
What are you approved for?
Speak up.
What are you approved for?
How much are you approved for? That kind of follows on that one. Have you spoken to a lender? If so, how much are you approved for? And I'm not gonna.
What would it mean to you if your offer was rejected? How
Okay, you want to go in at 155? What would it mean to you if your offer gets rejected?
how upset are you going to be or disappointed?
Are you gonna cry if you don't get the house? That's one of my favorite lines. Are you gonna cry if you don't get this? How upset are you gonna be tomorrow if somebody beats you?
How much are you gonna pay in closing costs to upgrade later if you buy the wrong house?
How much are you gonna pay in closing costs later? Say that again?
If you buy the wrong house now?
If you
Like,
buy
if this piggybacks on, are you gonna cry if you get it?
Are you gonna cry?
If you don't get it and you have to go buy something that's not quite right, how much
Oh.
you're gonna pay in closing costs when you do find something that's right 5 years from now? Right?
Okay.
Plan for the long term. If this is where you wanna be,
Okay,
pull the trigger.
okay. So you're gonna have closing costs on both houses? I guess that's what's confusing me.
Yeah,
So-
like someday if you upgrade, you're gonna
Oh.
pay a lot of money.
Okay,
Buy the right house now.
buy the right house now.
Melody had a really good one that I'm gonna say.
Go for it.
Karen is stealing Mel.
Because they mentioned that she had student debt, and, you know a lot about this.
I know about student debt.
She said, you know, have you talked to,
Yeah, how much do you pay now, and did you talk to them about lowering your payments?
because that might free her up some more money.
Right,
Because you
okay.
can say, I can't pay that on your student loans. and they'll
Okay,
give you the
so I
lower.
can only go 155 because I have all these student loans, so you might say, have you thought about consolidating your
Yeah.
student debt?
Mhm.
And is that something that we wanna work with her on, consolidating her student debt?
We could refer her to somebody
Yeah.
to do that.
She should be talking to her lender about that. Have you talked to your lender about maybe you could consolidate your student debt? You know, because, I don't know, I'm not gonna- maybe you're qualified to help her with that, I'm not, right? So, but that's good to get her thinking about that and then have her go look into it, right? You know, I've had a person that had like a $500 truck payment, and because of that, they couldn't buy this house that they really wanted.
Right.
I'm like, why do you have a $500 truck payment? Well, because I really like this truck. Well, you know, could you potentially like downgrade your vehicle and get into a smaller truck payment if you really want this house? Because your lender's telling me that with that truck payment, you're not going to qualify for this house. Well, I'm not willing to sell my truck. Okay, well then you're not buying a house, you know, right? So you need to know, or this conversation they need to have with their lender. I had a client once sell their truck. Husband and a wife, he sold his truck. They lived with one vehicle until he borrowed a vehicle from his brother until they could close on the house, because as long as they needed the cash from selling that vehicle in order to buy this house, and it was that important to them that she drove him to work, or you know, and on the weekends he borrowed his brother's car, because that's what they had to do in order to get into this house. Sold their truck. So yeah, I mean, it's a fierce question, right? Any other great questions? Anybody?
What is it about this house that you like so much?
Yep. Why do you
Is
love
that
this
what-
house?
Yeah.
What is it about it that you like about it? Then she's gonna start telling you, right? And what does that help you with?
To know how committed she is to either this house, or also if you're aware of the inventory, then
Yep.
you know that there might be some other options
Yeah.
that she might be interested in.
Okay, so she might say, well, I really love that I can walk to the park, or I really love that it's got a first floor bedroom, or I
Yeah,
really
that's a
love the
sticking
cute
point.
little kitchen, or whatever her motivation is. That helps you know more about what she's looking for if you don't already, and it also helps you if she wants to come in low, to come back to her and say, you really love this kitchen, and the park is right there. Why are you coming in $20,000 low? You're not gonna get the house, you know, like, right? So ask her dig in a little bit about why she loves the house. Maybe she likes the leaky roof. Other question?
Are you willing to look at, other homes that are more in the price range that you're looking?
Would you like to go look at some houses that are priced at $155? Since, you wanna pay $155 for this one, and I think it's fairly priced at $175, right? Great question.
What about, would you wanna put down a strong, earnest money deposit, because it comes back to your closing anyway?
Could you put down-
Wouldn't that help in like, and then we could, and then, I guess ask a little bit less?
Can you put down a strong earnest money deposit, because that might make up for the low price?
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe not. But it might.
it doesn't make a difference.
You gotta leave us?
Yeah, I gotta go, sadly. Sorry.
Bummer.
Sorry to interrupt.
Lee's gonna be paired up with these lovely ladies. Yeah, any other questions?
How much is
It's
your?
not really like
How much
a-
is your rent?
A question, it's
Okay.
more of a, put yourself in the seller's shoes. If you were given an offer for 155, would you accept that offer?
Well, that's a
Yeah,
really
so
good
that just
point.
a paradigm shift. Put yourself in the seller's shoes, and they're listing this as is for 175, and we think it's fairly priced. If you got an offer of 155, how would you react? Like, just that's a question. Boy, any others?
What are you gonna do about the leaky roof?
What are you gonna do about the leaky roof? So let's say you can get the house for 155. Do you have the money to repair the leaky roof after closing?
Could be,
Or
that's why she
somebody
didn't.
that you know that could repair the leaky roof? It's a good question, because you know it's leaking, and you don't want your first time buyer moving into a house with a leaky roof and know that she doesn't have the means to fix it. Right?
And not to mention, if she's first homeowner, there's probably more stringent guidelines that the bank's not gonna give a first-time homeowner a loan for a house that's got a no roof.
Well, I mean,
is that right?
well, there are first time buyer programs that, like rural development and, which isn't necessarily first time home buyer, it's a lower income, guideline that will require the house to not have a leaky roof. However, you can be a first time home buyer and get a conventional loan. So it doesn't, just because she's a first time home buyer doesn't mean her loan is a first time home buyer program. However, that would lead us to another great question.
How are you getting the finance?
What kind of loan do you have?
What kind of loan are you getting? Maybe she's a veteran. Maybe she's getting a VA loan. They're not gonna approve a loan on a leaky roof. FHA is not gonna approve a loan on a leaky roof. RD, they're not gonna. Have to have at least 5 years worth of life left on the roof for any of those loans. So that's a good, are you gonna be a conventional borrower, or are you gonna have one of these other programs? Good to know. Okay, what if the seller counters with a full offer to fix the roof, or counters with no repair at all? What would you do? That's a good question. What's the possibility of you paying for the repair and we stay at your asking price of $155? What is it about this house that makes it your favorite? That was one of the questions right in here. So good job, you guys. Came up with some great questions. And do you understand now the importance of giving it some thought every time you're faced with writing an offer, countering an offer, sitting with a buyer, sitting with a seller, to prepare? And it's all about asking great questions. Ask great questions. Right? Ask great questions. Okay, good job. We're going to take a break around 10 o'clock. We're good to power through, maybe between 10 and 10:15. Nonverbal and, nonverbal cues. So, you guys have this chart?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to fill in those 4 boxes. This is page 18, I think, in your book. So, we're just going to give you 5 minutes, and what I want you to do is write down some positive and negative nonverbal cues that you get face to face, or that you get on the phone, because you can do this in groups if you want, or you can just do it yourself. Either way. The words that we use in communication, the words that we use account for what percent of communication?
10%?
Actual words.
5%? Like that? Very small.
7%.
7. Okay.
That's why texts, no tonality, no nonverbal, just words.
Yep.
Emails, how do you read an email?
Like a book.
How you
How
do
to
it.
read it, how Yeah,
Say
but
that again?
You read it how you read it in your head, so whatever twist you have on it.
Whatever, however you're feeling at the moment.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
the mood you're in.
You are gonna put your mood on that text.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe they said that, or that's really nice. You know, like could be the same text. It's like whatever kind of a day that you're having, right? Unless they call you a B, you know, and then you know it's pretty clear. Which happened in a negotiation to me once. We don't do that.
They must have been, you know, hey, what's up?
Well, no,
babe?"
This happened. He thought he was texting his partner. And I was negotiating with him, and he didn't like how I was negotiating. He's like, but the text came to me instead. Yeah, so it's priceless. It happened the day before I taught Ignite last year, last year.
Were you
And
so mad?
I was just like, really? Wow. So I texted his partner and said, I think this was for you. Anyway, so I didn't deal with him the rest of the transaction. She took over. And yeah, next time I saw him, I showed him one of my condos in the old port. It was awkward. And so don't do that. Don't be mean in a negotiation. It's uncomfortable. And texting, you lose all tonality unless you're like an emoji king, right? Like, oh, smiley face, right? Like, you know, that helps. However, like emojis can only go so far. So nonverbal is huge. You call somebody on the phone and you go, hey, sending over a great offer. Or, hey, sending you over an offer. Take a look at it. Let me know what you think. Right? Like tonality, right? And then face to face, I mean, how fun would that be to go, and I've had this happen, I have an offer for you. You're gonna love it. Right? Like, one of my best friends from the office walks down the hall from his office to my office, brings me an offer, and we get to face talk about it. It's powerful. It's powerful. Phone, second best. Send an email. I've attached an offer. Please let me know. Response time is 2:00 tomorrow. Alright.
Hopefully you read it.
Right? Yeah, hopefully you got the email. So, this is all about utilizing nonverbals. Because the words are only 7%, which means 93% is non-verbal or tonality. So, write down some positives and some negatives on each. And really this is just to make you aware that they exist and they matter. And then we're going to jump into negotiating.
Good job.
Good job.
Touching smiling,
Yeah, definitely eye contact.
Also listening. Showing that you're respecting that.
Yep. And which on the other side, as you know, you're doing this
Yeah, of course, that we were on the discussion side.
always do this on the next time now. You know,
Yeah, right.
you feel like you're doing some sort of part.
Yeah. Some head nodding.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Awkward one.
Feel relaxed, confident in your body instead of
Yeah. Kindness, you know.
Yeah.
Positive is just being kind, person
Kind,
being
respectful.
just respectful.
Maybe person in the office. But compelled to
Being
Very good.
yeah, like showing that you're like you're interested in you're in it.
Yep.
You're in this.
Yep, I think, yeah, definitely. Versus like we were just seeing the negative kind of
Yeah, right.
you know, looking at the watch, you know, walking away as you're talking.
Is it talking about negative body cues, or is it talking about how to signal that something's going in a good direction, like how something really like things are changing, like how you would like softly break it.
So negative, yeah, I think head nodding, I think,
volume.
lack of eye contact, looking away.
Yeah.
Initial breathing.
And more just kind of, yeah, okay. positive, be back and forth.
Some negative could also be.
Oh, the negative points of face to face, is that what it is?
Yeah, I think it's,
Or
yeah.
is it a negative conversation?
No, well, I think this, yeah, I think it's what you would find positive
Yeah.
face to face and what you
Yeah.
would find negative
Yeah.
person on the phone.
Oh,
person
okay,
face to
I find
face.
that that's not.
Yeah.
The downside is from face to face.
So the negative part would just be uninterested.
Yeah.
Distractions like.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly, looking away at the phone.
Alright, what about on the phone?
Phone or time.
So, phone positive.
So yeah, like, yeah, I hear you, yeah, happy ones.
No, positive.
You guys got them?
Yeah.
Showing more interest, like maybe talking about like something else like that, or something like that.
Okay, connecting.
Yeah, connecting.
Yeah.
Where is Lee?
Does anybody have an iPad charger? That's gonna die.
iPhone?
Oh, I have an iPhone charger.
I don't know if we can play.
I know, it was last 6 degrees.
We had more snow in Portland. We had, it was past it, we had almost nothing. Yeah.
Several F-bombs.
Yeah.
Okay, who wants to give me some non-verbals?
Eye contact.
Eye contact. Positive or negative?
Positive.
Both.
Depends.
Could be
Well,
both. They could be staring you down.
Evil eye.
That's right, as long as you're getting the eye contact, that's okay.
Okay, so these are face to face. Positive. Eye contact, nice eye contact. Bad eye contact. Evil eye. What else?
Hand gestures.
Head gestures. Give me an example.
Exactly what you're doing.
What's this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
show that you're actively listening to them.
Active listening. Leaning in. Negative.
And
Checking the watch.
Fidgeting. The fake smile, I hate the fake smile.
Fake smile. Okay, what else?
Conveying energy in your speech and your body language.
Energy.
Just energy is
Crossed arms.
Energy is everything.
it's.
How's my energy right now?
I love it.
You
see how I changed the situation?
You need your charger there.
Closed gestures, crossed arms, lack of eye contact, or the evil eye. Open gestures, nodding, sitting back, open palms may indicate agreement, understanding, yes, give me more. Okay, on the phone.
Excited,
Voice.
positive.
So the tone of your voice.
Yeah, tone, yeah.
Excited.
Talkative.
What?
If they're like positive, they'll be more talkative. If they're negative, they're ready to hang up on you.
So negative, they might be quieter, less responsive, might be more long, pregnant, uncomfortable pauses, monotone, flat, okay, alright, monosyllabic, slow, upbeat, it would be good, emphatic, well, upbeat, emphatic would be good if it's positive emphatic. Varied tones, talking fast, oh my god, that's great, I'll call you right back, right? You get it, right? This isn't new. Guys are all people, like, this is what we do, right? However, I gotta tell you, I don't know, anybody a parent of a teenager, preteen? Right? It's all Snapchat and text. Like, they don't even ask each other to prom in person anymore. Like, my son's trying to figure out like a Snapchat way to or he's gonna put it on his Instagram story. Should I invite my girlfriend to prom, yes or no, and do a poll?
Oh, no.
No.
I'm like, no.
No,
I have a girlfriend.
no, even my
No.
16-year-old.
No, if someone says no, the evidence goes away immediately, doesn't it? Like it never happened.
Tell me to
On
call
Snap-
and
but on Instagram, you can put it on a story. So, like, commute. I'm a lot older than everybody in here, right? But I mean, in our generation, it was all face to face, and like we played with our friends outside and got into fights in person, and
Right.
you know, we didn't break up with people by text, and so like literally, society is getting away from personal contact. I mean, when I became a real estate agent, like, we didn't really have scanners. Really dating myself. Like, okay, I take that back. I had a scanner. Our clients didn't have scanners. A lot of them had fax machines. And I mean, I go back and look at my files from 10 years ago, and you can barely read the contracts because they were faxed back and forth so much, and they were such bad copies, and then you'd have to print it out, you'd drive over to your client's house. Hey, I got a counter offer. Hey, I got a counter offer. Can I come over? You know, you drive over there. I remember going to Easter dinner at one of my clients' house one time and having them sign something at the Easter dinner table. I wasn't having Easter dinner, they were, right? Because we didn't have scanners, they didn't have technology, we didn't have DocuSign. Can you imagine life without DocuSign or Dotloop? It existed. Real estate was sold without DocuSign and Dotloop. We had to be in front of our clients. We had to drive or meet them. Can't tell you how many times we've met at, you know, well, it wasn't Starbucks, we didn't have Starbucks back then. Like, oh, this is how, like, seriously. Right, we would meet at Dunkin' Donuts. I'll meet you at Dunkin' Donuts. Or they would actually come into our office and they would sit down and write their offers with us in the office, right? I mean, at least we had the MLS when I became an agent, you know, like before that it was a book.
No.
Right?
No,
when seriously, ask Dottie, like it used to be, it was a book. It was a big thick book, and you had to come into the office to find out what was on the market because it wasn't on the internet. We didn't have the internet.
Yeah, I look
once
at
a
those
month,
books, like the main real estate magazine, the little, like,
yeah, no,
with
but this
all
was the
key
MLS
listings.
book. It was like all
Right.
the listings were published in a book.
But even then, like, you look at these things, it's like, wow, that's
We
a
don't
date.
do that
'cause
anymore, yeah, it's a long
everything's
line.
also fast.
So my point is, we are not face to face with our clients as often as we used to be. So the phone becomes our second preferred choice. So you've got to have some tonality on the phone. I mean, you can video conference them or FaceTime them. I have clients that that I have represented. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I didn't meet them until the closing. Like, can that happen?
Yeah.
Right?
Someone's out of state.
I mean, I had a seller, he called me up to list a piece of land in Freeport for him, and he was from like mid-coast, way up somewhere, and he's like, just list it for me. I walked into the closing, hi, I'm Ann. Like, this was my seller, and we were closing. Because everything was electronic, and you can do that. I have a seller right now. I have a condo in Yarmouth. I've never met this seller.
What do you like better, the way it used to be or now?
I mean, I didn't like driving all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot more efficient now. We ought to be able to do twice as many transactions now with electronic signatures and get them done faster. Like, it was pretty rare to get something listed and get it under contract that day because you chased signatures.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now we can do that pretty easily with multiple offers. So, last week I got multiple offers and I drove back to their house because with a spreadsheet that I had made with all the columns for all the different offers, because it was complex, you know, and I had printed out what I thought was the best offer, brought it with me just in case, and they had a printer anyway, so if they chose something else, we could have printed it, and they were the type that needed me to sit down with them. They're both really high S personalities. I wasn't going to just call them over the phone and say, all right, which offer do you want to pick? Let's talk about it, right? Like, they needed me to be there, sat across the kitchen table with them. By the time they signed, they felt really good. They just wrote me the most glowing email this weekend. I said, can I publish this? I mean, it was really good. They were really happy about how it happened. And I think being in front of them and spending that time with them was important to them. You know, they're like my age, a little bit older. And a lot of times today, we get offers. we have a hashtag in my team, hashtag Don't Be Harriet, because this woman, whose name happened to be Harriet, sent me an offer. Sent me an offer a couple years ago, and I didn't even know that her client was interested in the house. They had been to see it like weeks before. Didn't really give me any feedback about whether they were interested. You know, like, they're thinking about it. You know, the house had been on the market a while. It was in the middle of winter. It was up in Litchfield, and no feedback. Well, like, oh, they're thinking about making an offer, or oh, you know, what would this closing date work for your seller, or nothing. And then just emails me an offer. And in the body of the email, didn't say, my buyers are really well qualified, they really like the house, blah, 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 they could go, nothing, just attached, please find an offer. Or I don't even think she said that, I don't know, it's just an offer, right? Well, I was out on the road like I am, you know, because I'm a real estate agent. I didn't see the offer, it just came in my email. Like, I was busy. She didn't call me, she didn't text me, hey, I just sent you over an offer, I want to tell you about it, nothing. And it was like 3 hours later, it was like 5:30, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not checking my email all day long. Like, holy cow, there's an offer sitting in there, and now the deadline to respond is like in a couple hours, right? Don't do that. Don't, you know, did she do her clients any favors?
No.
Like, not even calling me, telling me there was an offer, not like, hey Ann, these guys really like the house, they're really excited, they can picture themselves there, they're pre-qualified, this is their lender, blah, 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 nothing. I got nothing on their behalf, just 4-page purchase and sale, literally no pre-qual letter, nothing, no communication. I mean, we put it together, it's old. However, don't do that, that's not good. Hashtag Don't Be Harriet. So when you write an offer, you call the other agent or go see him before you send the offer.
Have you worked with Harriet since then?
No. I mean, she's lovely. She's just pretty old school. I don't know. Maybe she was just busy. I'm not going to stand in judgment of her. However, I am going to use her as an example of what I don't want my team doing. You call the other agent or go see the other agent.
Go see them.
Is there a preference to what you would do?
If you can go see them because they're in your office, go see them.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, right.
You know, I'm not going to drive over to B Group and try to track someone down. I'm going to call them.
I know that. We're like so newbies. We're like, okay, I think I should.
Right? I mean, agents are busy. It's pretty rare now that but in the back in the day, like people used to, and Arthur Gary still teaches this. You ask to present the offer to the seller if you're the buyer agent. Can I meet with your seller and present the offer, and you can be there. That's how they used to do it. Seriously.
That could be bad.
Yikes! Yeah,
I've done it
want
once.
to talk to the seller.
I've done it once. With
Yeah, I
permission,
got
you
2
can.
offers on this property that I just sold, and the first one was like completely cold, like you said, and it really surprised me.
Right.
And the second one, like, she told me a little bit. It was actually the president of my real estate work. She told me a little bit about the organization that wanted to buy it, and that was much better. But still, no, like, pick up the phone, call me. I called both of these agents, and neither one of them picked up.
After you got the offer, you called them?
Yeah, I called them, like, hey,
so
I want to talk to you
neither
about
one of
your
them
offer.
called you? Right, and that's
what
what I do now too. I've gotten offers recently, and I'll call them. I'm like, "Hey, I just got your offer. Can you tell me a little bit about your buyers?" Like,
Yeah.
almost every offer I've gotten this year has been like that, with people that didn't even call me, except for, you know, I've had some from here that do it the right way, and I appreciate that. And then, you know, I have a feel-good feeling, and then I take that to my seller. Not that we're, you know, supposed to be colored by that. However, we're human, and if you've got somebody that, you know, sells it to you, it's going to make it easier for you to sell it to your seller, right? Or at least, you know, tell them things that might be important to them about the offer. Well, you know, they told me they put May 5th on there, but they want you to know that they're really flexible on closing, and if you don't want to close until June, they're okay with that. Like, that's a verbal thing, and you can put it in the body of an email so that you know it's safe to counter them on June 5th. Or whatever. That's a conversation. right? So this is all so communication based. Just call the other agent. Same thing with a counter, same thing with an ICA, call them. Don't just send it over. Please. Okay, so that's my speech and my spiel. I'm a little passionate about verbal. Oh look, present the offer, page 17. So we go backwards a little bit, because that nonverbal thing is a little bit out of order. And there's a slide missing page 17. So, you'll have that on page 17? So move into the negotiation process by presenting your current offer to the cooperating agent and listening to the response. What's the first thing it says right there?
Call the other agent.
Call the other agent. Unless you can walk down the hall. Like, how much would I love to have Bridget Vermaat, whose office is between my two offices, right? I have an office, and then Bridget, and then my team has an office. And she and I have done some deals together lately, and she peeks her head around the corner and goes, I have an offer for you. I love that. Like, that's so fun, right? And it feels so good. And she can tell me whatever she can tell me, and I can give her a hug, whatever, right? 7 hugs a day, we're gonna do that. So, it's awesome. Second best is calm. So inviting them into the buying loop in E-Edge, you know, that we don't do it that way. I'm not sure if that's still protocol. Pay attention to the nonverbal cues. So if you have them on the phone or if you have them in person, see what they're doing, right? Keep quiet once you present the offer. Let them talk. Let them respond. Let them think about it. Listen carefully to what's important to the other party. So I might go over to Bridget and say, I'm going to be writing an offer on your listing. I'm really excited. My buyer really likes the house. She doesn't have a house to sell. It's going to be cash, like whatever I'm going to tell her, right? And she really would rather wait 60 days to close, but if your seller really needs to close sooner, we could probably make that happen, right? And she's listening to me. She's taken that in because that's important information. And then usually I'm going to back it up in an email too, so that she's got something to really share with her client, and I can be sure that there's no miscommunication because I've also put it in writing. However, that does not replace the communication that happens verbally. Does that make sense? That's a backup. Just to reiterate our conversation, just want to remind you that my buyer would like to close in 60 days. However, she is flexible. If you really need to close sooner, she can do it 30. Right? Just be very clear. Over communicate. I'm the queen of over communication. If you've seen me on Facebook, you know that. Stay calm and relaxed. That doesn't mean don't be enthusiastic, right? So you can present the offer. Focus on the customer's needs. Isolate the objections of both sides. So this is when you're offering and counter-offering. And offer solutions that will satisfy the other party while still meeting your client's need. So circle that paragraph, because that's the essence of negotiation, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to go, oh, well, this. And you're going to go, oh, we're not conveying the chandelier. It's a family heirloom. Well, they want the chandelier. Oh, are we at a stalemate right now? Can't have the chandelier. We want the chandelier. You can't have the chandelier. We want the chandelier. It's like, can't pay the rent, but you must pay the rent. You can't pay the rent, but you must pay the rent. I want the chandelier. You can't have the chandelier. Are we at a stalemate right now? Is the buyer and the seller at a stalemate? Buyer wants a chandelier. Seller says, no, we're taking it. Oh, next. Gotta find another buyer.
You just continue negotiation. There's always something in the contract that can be moved.
Speak up.
You just continue the negotiation, because there's always parts in the transaction that can be
right.
Creative.
Buyer wants the chandelier. Seller says we're taking the chandelier.
perfect example.
Is it over?
No.
Why is it not over?
Not for money to buy it, for them to buy a chandelier.
Because there's still room for negotiation.
Because there's two real estate agents in the middle of them, making it happen.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's us. Right?
You can
Well,
sit down and have coffee with the agent even if there's
Yeah.
like complete conflict
Jeez.
and turmoil going on between the buyer and seller.
Dave, I know that you're seller's really wants to take that chandelier, my buyer really wants it too, like, how can we work this out? Like, well, what about this, and what about that, what about this, what about that? Come up with some possible solutions, go back to your clients, present those, bring the clients together. So what this says is focus on the customer's needs, isolate the objection of both sides, and offer solutions that will satisfy the other party while still meeting your client's needs. If we give you $2,500 for that chandelier, will you let us take it? Oh, okay. We'll buy one that looks just like it and have some money to boot, right? Like, we just isolated the objection, found a solution that satisfies the buyer, and the seller gets to take the chandelier. It's probably a wedding gift or something, I don't know, right? It's gonna come up, stuff like that all the time. Our job is to not be the buyer or the seller, is to be the negotiator, facilitator, advisor, bringing the thing together. Give your offer the best chance. Circle this one too. Be confident and committed to your offer as you present it. Avoid indicating to the other side if you believe it's a less than great offer for them. Oh my gosh, I could stand here and just for 20 minutes and give you examples of this. You want a negative example or a positive example?
Positive.
Positive.
And negative.
And negative. You want the positive first? Yeah, this guy. Another agent who, you know, I kind of know him, but not that well. Had a house listed for, let's say 400, and hadn't been on the market that long. And it was a pretty big house. It was in a great town. And he calls me up. He's like, Ann, I have a really strong offer for you. I'm going to be sending it over in a little while, okay? I'm like, great, Tom. Let's call him Tom. That's awesome. And he's like, yeah, you know, my buyers, they have a house to sell. I'm like, okay, is that listed? No, it's not listed yet. But, you know, they're really strong buyers. They really like this house, and it's really going to work well for them. You know, it's going to be a multi-generational thing. Their house is awesome. It's in North Yarmouth. I'm sure it's going to sell really fast. And they're offering, you know, $370. And my house is listed for $400, let's say. And he's like, it's going to be, I can't wait to work with you. Looking forward to it. I'm thinking, seriously? You just came in $30,000 low. House has been on the market like 2 weeks. And they've got a house to sell that you haven't even listed yet?
Right.
This is not a strong offer, right?
This is a positive someone?
Yeah, this is
Okay.
awesome.
Right?
Right? I mean, how could that have gone?
Right.
He could have come in and go, well, you know, my buyers, they got a house to sell, haven't even listed it yet, they're coming in $30,000 low, but, you know, present it to your seller and let me know what they say. He didn't do that. He rocked it. He presented his offer in the best light possible. Like, he had me convinced it was a good offer, right?
And he probably knew that you were rolling your eyes on the other end of the phone.
He just, man, had the courage of his convictions. I don't know what he was thinking, but he was doing a great job, right? That's the positive one. Guess what?
It went through.
He sold that house. We had a failed septic. We like, oh my gosh, there was so much that went on beyond that, but we ended up, it sold, right? God love him. He taught us a great lesson. And so, when we present an offer now, hashtag let's be Tom, we always say, hey, Karen, I'm sending over an offer. It's a great offer. My clients are so qualified. They love the house. This is what they can do, blah, blah, blah. This is when they can close, da, 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 da. And my attitude about my offer is impeccable. I believe in my offer. Whether I believe in it or not, I sell it. That's my job. Right? Mm-hmm. That's our job, is to get your buyer this house. Do you have to believe that it's a perfect offer to sell it? Mm-hmm. No. Do you have to sell it? Mm-hmm. Yes. It's your job. Think about that.
So what happened if he wasn't able to sell their house, though? And you say, oh, that.
Then you can't go
and
close.
you did accept his offer. I mean.
Well, then it doesn't close.
It
Right?
doesn't
If they
close.
made it subject to the sale of that
Yeah.
house. and that there would be an addendum about that, subject to sale addendum,
Right.
and, but.
And that's part of how you negotiate with
That's
your
part of your
seller, too. It's
negotiation, like-
well, you have this offer and this offer, this
Exactly.
one they have to sell a house.
Right.
Right, and and we don't always have multiple offers, and so I have made offers on behalf of a client who needs to sell a house, and I just leverage my lore, like, if you've got 104% list to sale price ratio and, an average of 1 day on the market if your listings, I mean, my lore is good. I do have about like a 99.9% list to sale price ratio and, sale to list price, and, like, historically over 13 years, like 23 days on the market, which is good. So when I present an offer for a client of mine, subject to the sale of their house, I say to the other agent, we got the house ready to go. It's going to be in the internet. It's going to be online within 4 days. We've already got photos scheduled. My average days on market is 23, so I'm confident I'm going to get this house under contract within at least 4 weeks, and we're going to price it really aggressively so that your clients can be confident that it's going to sell. Right? Like, I'm going to present my offer in the strongest light possible. Right? So part of that is knowing your lore and being able to show the other agent and invite them. Do you want to come over and see their house? I'm going to tell you what I'm going to price it at. I'd love your opinion, so that you can go back and tell your seller that this is a pretty good deal, that they're going to get their house sold. Whatever you have to do to make your offer strong, right? So present your offer in the best possible light. Who still wants the negative?
Sure.
Oh, sure. I want to hear.
The skeptic?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm not the skeptic.
So here's the negative. Hey, and I just want to let you know. Well, no. Okay, this is even worse. I got this once. Hey, I've got a client that wants me to write an offer on your listing. Like, they want to come in like $30,000 low, and honestly, I don't even think it's worth putting it on paper. Because I think your price is great. And I told them they need to come up to your price, and they won't, and they still want me to write an offer $30,000 low. I don't even want to waste our time. Do you think it's worth me writing an offer and sending it over to you, Ann? Really? You just did that to your client.
Well, okay, I thought that was.
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't that like
No,
an ethical?
somebody did
issue?
right.
That's an
Right.
unethical way to
Okay,
handle
first of
stuff.
all, unethical. Second of all, like, now when they send the offer, I'm already thinking it's a crappy offer, whether I right? And the agent just told me that they thought my listing price was on spot. Don't do that. When you give feedback, you show a house, your client doesn't like the house, and they're not going to buy it, so then you give feedback, and the agent says, what do you think of our price? And you go, just right. No. Like, because what if you end up writing an offer on it, and your offer is $20,000 low or $10,000 low? Well, you already told me you thought my price was just right. Careful. Because you're representing buyers on the other side, right? Okay, so, but here's a real one. Hand, sending you over an offer, it's the best they could do. Take a look at it. It's $175. I know you got the house listed for $199, but honestly, these guys just aren't that motivated, and I'm sure you're probably going to get better offers, but take a look at it. Let me know. Really? What's in my mind right now? I don't even want to open the email, right? And how am I going to present that to my seller? Well, I'm not. I'm going to readjust. And I'm going to go, hey, we got an offer. It's $175. Right? Because my job is to make them happy and get them to look at the qualities of the offer. Right? However, the way that you present your offer matters. Right? And, people say you sell a house 3 times. You sell it to the other agent, you sell it to their buyer, and then you sell it to the appraiser or the bank. So I go to all my appraisals if it's my listing, and I've got an appraisal tomorrow, and I'm going to meet that appraiser there, and I'm going to convince that appraiser that that house is worth every penny. Hey, did you see the generator? Hey, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. The central back, like, I'm going to show them everything I know about the house, tell them how much that we had 60 people at the open house, and we had multiple offers, and convince the appraiser that it's worth what it's worth. Like, that's our job. We're salespeople. We're gonna sell it to the other agents, sell it to the buyer, sell it to the bank. We sell the house 3 times when we list a house. Okay?
So the selling agent meets with the
A
appraiser?
listing agent meets the appraiser.
Okay,
At
a
the
listing
listing.
agent meets the appraiser.
Yep.
I'm gonna have that coming up.
Have you ever had
sometime
someone
soon.
come with a lower appraisal and then you show them like your CMAs and say, you know, this is how I came up with it, how'd you come up
Oh,
with
yes.
yours?
And does that ever change their?
Oh, not usually.
Oh boy, oh boy.
Appraisers don't usually change their value.
No.
Unless you've got something that's really, that they missed.
Yeah.
You missed the fact that it had 800 feet of water frontage. Hello, could you put that in? You know, oh, okay, you know, whatever, right? Then they might adjust their appraisal, but it's pretty rare. Could do a whole class on that. Okay, we're gonna do a few tactics, nibbling, and then we're gonna take a break, and then we're gonna come back and do role play. So nibbling is once your client has agreed to something, then they come back and they ask for something else. Like, we're already in agreement on A, B, C, and D, and you've signed off on it. Or maybe you haven't signed off on it, but you're in agreement. Okay, good, we're all gonna get signatures on this, right? And then you think you're good, and then they go, oh, and by the way, they also want X, Y, and Z. Really? Like, where did that come from? They're just nibbling, trying to get more. Like, I don't know, give me what the X, Y, and Z might be. Like, oh, and they also want the washer and dryer. We didn't write that in, and I know we didn't agree to it, but they'd really like the washer and dryer. And they'd like to move some boxes into the garage a week before closing. What do you do if they start nibbling? What's a good tactic, counter tactic?
Go back to the original contract?
That's what I would
You
do.
just refer to the contract like, oh, so no. Or if you're trying to, like, you don't want to just ignore it. Like, say, oh, so it sounds like they need to move some stuff in early, and now they want the washer and dryer. Do you want to just shut them down?
No.
We could charge you some rent for storage.
There you go. So you counter tactic. You nibble back. Nibble, 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 nibble. Right?
It's like Lady and the Tramp and the spaghetti.
Oh, that should be the graphic up here, the 2 dogs with the spaghetti. That's perfect. One of my favorite movies. So you stop nibbling from happening by nibbling back. So when it happens to you, because it will, just think, oh my gosh, they're nibbling. I'm going to nibble back. It's fair play. Okay, hot potato. The other party tries to pass a problem on to you. That's not your problem. Well, you know, my buyer doesn't have any place to store their stuff, and they need to put stuff in the garage. Not my problem.
There's a card in there.
Can they rent a storage locker? Like, just throw it back. Like, go
Yeah.
have them find a problem. Like, right?
Exactly.
They try to make a problem yours that's not yours. You just toss it back to them. My buyer would love to buy the house, but he's got a $500 truck payment. Tell him to sell the truck. I mean, right? Like, give them back their potato.
What about if it's a hot potato, like something that actually comes up? Like, oh, by the way, the roof is not good enough for VA loan, which I'm sweating about right now on this list.
Oh, yes.
And they're like, we need you to do the repair.
Well,
Do you just
so
like
without
go on
talking
to the
specifically
next?
about a transaction of yours on YouTube, let's just say that there was a roof problem and you're under contract and the buyer has a VA loan. So that's really a problem of the buyer's financing, and therefore, by association, it's a problem of the seller. Because when the seller agreed to the contract, the seller agreed to a VA loan. So at that point, you can terminate or figure out a way to get one person or the other to fix it, and sometimes the seller does fix it because the seller agreed to a VA loan. So if I've got a seller and I know their roof isn't that great and they get an offer and it's like a VA loan, I'm going to go, you might not want to accept that because your roof's not going to pass the VA loan. Or you're going to know that you're probably going to have to fix your roof. So I would
So
address
it is kind of like by default a hot potato issue if something does turn up, like it's going to be on the seller.
No, I'm not saying it's gonna be on the seller, I'm gonna say it's gonna become a negotiation.
Okay. So you could offer
gotta
a
work it out.
split or work it out.
Make it
in
up or whatever,
way.
anything from here to here.
Right.
And it's whatever's anybody's tolerance is. And, you know, can they switch financing and go conventional? Can they increase the price and have the seller pay for it?
Right. So they're basically financing their portion of the repair.
Could be.
Yeah.
We can talk specifics later. Good guy, bad guy. Kind of like good cop, bad cop. So sometimes you'll get like a husband and a wife or something, or if it's a, you know, commercial, maybe like two business partners, and one of them's like, oh, we're not gonna do that. One of them's like, you know, they're playing good guy, bad guy on you. And you know, the best way to just go, you guys like playing good guy, bad guy on me? Or are you really not in agreement? Just call them on it and see what they do, right? Okay. Positioning is moving both parties closer to each other until we have full agreement. So let's take a break right now. We're going to talk about positioning when we get back, and then you're going to position. This is when you're going to do your group thing, and from here to the rest of the class, it's just a lot of group role play, so it's going to be fun. Okay? I'll see you back in 7 minutes. Is 7 minutes enough? You got 10:35? Yep. Everybody check your clock. Does that work?
All right.
You gonna leave? Is this your first one?
Yeah, kind of when I started out in the middle of the night last time.
So you can take 10.
Oh, I want coffee.
So this is role play next time. Have you done some transactions though?
I've
I know, I didn't clear the rest of the class.
You're under contract.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm with have to read.
I thought your guy married Matt. He usually takes care of the son and she's
Right.
So
How long have you done with John?
You know what, I go
That's
from
all right. No, it's good because you weren't here when we went around the room and asked if everybody was on the team or so.
Yeah. So it's I was with HRG about some grand that what can happen. Kind of like with us in the skies. It was a real eye opener. Starting to interview with other teams just around. And I didn't know I could interview with other teams before I make sure because I kind of did it while I was moving from my here, so I was like, wow. I know. And I looked at they are Lewis and Patrick. Patrick Newman is not the director, so he's kind of like my mentor and everything. My staff, like politics, stuff like that. It's great.
Good, well thanks for taking the class. That's awesome.
Of course.
Sorry that you can't stay for the role play, but you're welcome to take it again. This class is offered again in May. No, it's actually June.
In June? I think it does start up though. It's sometime in May.
It starts in May,
I
but
think I
10
saw
is,
like that.
10 is actually offered like June 10th, I think, and I'm not going to be here, I'm going to be in England, so somebody else is going to be teaching it.
Okay.
I think
I'm gonna be gone.
Oh.
Alright, hold on.
Drive safely
Yeah,
out there,
it's
Jason.
good.
It's good to see you. I'll
Likewise.
see you, tomorrow we have another.
I actually have something tomorrow too, so I think I'll probably. Is that the last one?
No, tomorrow, then Friday.
I'll
but
probably
then
make it Friday.
They said something about all agents.
Oh, the all agent
on
part.
Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna be there.
All right, I'll see you then.
You have a good day.
Have a good day.
calendar, just,
Oh, right, yeah,
I
like
don't
the
have part of it. I was looking at my phone, I don't like part of my Google Calendar.
I know.
It's like, just like, my old email address, not my new one, for some reason, is not, it's not linking in, so I gotta get a new shooter.
We went through everything before I did the offer anyway, so I felt pretty good about where we were at. It's just like, can it go through? Well, I know, my impression of it at home. But I don't know, you need a whole kitchen table. Yeah.
Oh, my kitchen table is just full of stuff
Yep.
right now, I know.
You don't need
It's
those.
awesome. I got a little space that I have an idea of,
Just like,
I'm gonna make a little office space.
chances are, well, if we're done now,
But I haven't done it.
and you never know. Could even that.
Hey, we have one more minute.
Just when things keep growing, it's like, okay, next one, I'm pretty sure we'll be able to find residents.
Yeah.
Great, and like highlight it. That's cool.
I know. I went to the dollar store and I got like,
Pocket detectives.
I got this like, this whole thing of like, I'm making my note cards in there, I got like, my highlighter,
It's not cool.
pencils.
Yeah. Yeah,
Who's
it's smart.
representing the seller? The antique farmhouse with the big barn, and the barn is, and
Yeah.
couldn't have any flaking price on it. And so my friend, they just went to went over and put around the barn door, because.
Neuromuscular therapy.
And the child went to like, how the seller came.
But I work with a
So I was like, I don't know, I just can't do it. She said, I'll help you, so they recommended it, and.
Oh, interesting.
I don't represent a liability,
Oh, cool.
you know, like, yeah.
Of course.
Well, I mean, I just went over, I put a handrail on for the rest of it, that's not like any of this handrails or anything like that. Yeah, so you can do that, 'cause I thought certain things you shouldn't do,
I'm not saying
especially
you
like
should,
that.
I'm just saying.
So, anything else. I have a feeling that if something does come up, it'll just be negotiated.
Everything's negotiable.
Split in some way.
Everything's negotiable. Okay. It's 10:37. Thank you. Everybody good? Positioning. Okay, so we talked about positioning, and Alan has the perfect visual for that. How many of you have seen Lady and the Tramp?
Long time ago.
The little dog and the little girl dog and
Spaghetti.
the spaghetti, and they're both eating the same piece of spaghetti, and they come closer and closer together until their lips are touching at the end of the spaghetti. That's positioning. I love that. Thank you. I'm going to use that forever and ever now. I'll give you credit for the first 3 times. So positioning is moving both parties closer to each other until you have full agreement. Acknowledge and affirm the common ground. So that's the first thing. So remember the chandelier video, right? Okay, Dave, so that closing date works great. We like the price, or the seller likes the price, and again, there's no we in negotiation because it's not our negotiation. My client likes the price, my client is in agreement on the price. My client, my seller, my buyer. We don't say we, like we like the price. There's no we. You are a representative of the other person, right? So, I like to make that point. Say all the things that your client likes about the offer or the counteroffer. That's affirming common ground. So we're in agreement on the closing date. We're in agreement on the price. We're actually in agreement on 10 days for inspections. We're not in agreement on the washer and dryer, chandelier, whatever, right? So, but start with the positives. Start with affirming the common ground. Does that make sense? Make a note of that, because when you role play in a few minutes, you need to start by not acknowledging the common ground in your dialogue with each other. And we're down to 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, so we still have an even number for pairing up. You're just going to have to switch your pairs now. Your partner left and your partner left, so you guys are going to be together, I think. Ask what and how questions. So this goes right back to ask great questions, the pink one up there. So, to better understand the parties' values and why certain things are important to them. Right? For example, as you represent a seller who wants to close in 30 days, if a buyer wants to close in 60 days, ask your client Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you're requesting a 30-day closing. What's important to you about closing in 30 days? What's important to you about blank? Let's all say that as a group. 1, 2, 3. What's important to you about blank? What's important to you about that? What's important to you about not having a fuel proration? What's important to you about having that chandelier? What's important to you about closing in 30 days or not closing in 30 days? What's important to you about that? Such a great question for motivation. And because they might say, well, it's important because X, Y, Z, and you might say, oh, okay, well, I think we can work something out where you still get X, Y, Z and get you to agree to this, you know, and you can agree to this or something like that, you know what I mean? So find out why, because they might just go, oh my God, if we close in 30 days, then I don't have time to open the pool, you know, and you might say, oh, you're not going to have to open the pool. They're buying it as it is right now, and right now the pool's closed up. Oh, well then I guess I can close in 30 days, right? Like, so when you ask them that question, it might resolve itself. Does that make sense? Okay, ask great questions. If your client becomes defensive, then you just let them know, look, I'm gathering information so that I can work on your behalf, talking to the other agent. So my goal is to let the buyer know why this is important to you. What's important to you about taking that chandelier with you? Well, it just is. I'm just taking it. Well, why is that important to you? Well, it was my grandmother's. Oh. Is it okay if I tell the buyer that it was your grandmother's? Because that might make the buyer back down a little bit, right? Sure. Okay, great. Thank you for letting me know why that was important to you. Now I can communicate that to the other side, and we'll all be happy. So understanding what's important to the other party goes the other way too. Let's say you're the listing agent, buyer agent brings you an offer, they want to close in 45 days. What's important to them about closing in 45 days? Well, you know, they're selling their house and they don't need to sell it to buy. However, they really don't want to move twice, so they really need to be in 45 days. They don't want to be in a temporary rental. Or their kids are starting school and they need to be in the school district by this date, or oh gosh knows what. So many reasons, right? But if you find out and you communicate with the other agent, it just puts you in a better position to have a more open dialogue, because negotiation is really just a conversation. Right? Positioning is a process. Sometimes you have to go back and forth a few times, right? You get that. Mm-hmm. How many times do you get an offer and then they accept it and you're done?
No.
Not very. You're lucky. Sounds like that's what happened to you. Oh no, you had a counter offer, right?
Yeah, we countered.
Yeah.
They wanted some concessions, and we said, well, we don't want quite that much. Or we said we don't want any.
Not we, they.
Yeah, they said we don't want any. And the buyer decided to meet us halfway, and we're all happy.
Parties are all happy. Perfect.
Everyone's happy.
And the agents are happy, right? I'm picking on you because we want to take the we out of negotiation and talk about they, our clients.
Right.
Right. And you're happy. So it's win-win-win. So positioning is a process, and know when to walk away. Sometimes it's not going to come together. You have to walk away. And you're like, dang, I was going to buy a new car with that commission. You got to walk away. If it's not coming together for your client on either side, are you going to try to convince your buyer to pay more than they should or that they're comfortable with in order to just get yourself a contract? Say no. No. Are you going to really beat on your seller to take a really bad lowball offer if it's not really the value of the house and if it's not really in their best interest just because you want a commission? Say no.
Yeah.
No. You're on camera.
I don't see it.
They were just kidding. So, no, you're not. Sometimes you have to walk away. I mean, and sometimes you need to advise your clients. I mean, I had clients they were doing a 1031 exchange. I don't know if you know what that is, but you sell an investment property and you have X amount of days to buy a replacement property or properties. And these people sold something that was over $1 million, and we were finding them a series of places to buy, a bunch of smaller places to buy, and they procrastinated and they waited until the end of their identification period to put these places under contract. And so now their identification period was over, they couldn't choose any more houses. And if they didn't close on them, they were going to leave some money on the table and pay some taxes on the portion that they didn't reinvest. And so they bought one house, it's all great, that one went through, and then they had this other, the duplex under contract, and oh my gosh, we got into inspections, and I mean, like mold, termites, and structural issues, and foundational issues, and water quality, and I mean, it was just all these latent defects that didn't show up, that weren't disclosed, that were going to cost them so much money that it was going to end up making the investment a bad investment. They still really needed to close in order to not pay taxes, and yet they were going to inherit all these problems that in the long run probably wasn't going to be, it wasn't going to outweigh the tax hit they were going to take. Now, was this my decision to say you shouldn't buy this because, you know, I don't know what their taxes were going to be. I knew what the investment, what they were going to have to put into the house in order to bring it up to make it a feasible investment, right? Was it my decision? Was it okay when they decided to terminate?
No.
Because it was their decision. They knew they were willing to take that tax hit because they knew that this was going to be a bad move for them. And I was on board with it. I was like, I agree that it's a bad move. I don't know what your tax hit's going to be. I don't think you should buy this house. And you don't think you should buy this house. So let's just terminate it while we can, right? I lost out on a commission and a future sale because, you know, when they ever go to sell it, hopefully they're going to list with me, right? So, and they ended up buying nothing because of the timing. We walked away. You have to walk away sometimes. It's okay because the relationship you have with that client is way more important than $5,000 or $15,000 commission. It's really, we're relationships. We're in relationships for life, right? It's hard when you're starting out and every $5,000 is important. I mean, every $5,000 is always important. And yet, sometimes walking away is the thing to do. Okay. Don't burn any bridges. Okay, partners. Fun. Now, one of you is the buyer agent. Raise your hand if you want to be the buyer agent. All right. One in each pair. Doesn't matter to me. Okay. And next time, if you're the buyer agent right now, next time you're going to be the listing agent. Okay. So we've got all the buyer agents. Raise your hand high. Okay. Raise your hand if you're a listing agent. All right. So you're gonna, you know what your roles are. Take a few minutes to review the scenario and the information about your role. Review your role. So the buyer agents, you're gonna read about the buyer agent. We're all gonna read the scenario. The listing agent, you're gonna read your role, and then you're gonna take 1 or 2 minutes to prepare. Tell me again, what do we do when we're preparing for a negotiation?
Figuring out motivation.
Asking questions.
Great questions.
Asking motivated questions. We're listening and we're having them sign.
You're preparing for your negotiation that consists of asking great questions, because does this scenario give you all the information you need? Say no. No. Okay. So, scenario, the property has 4 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms, and is listed at $350. Holy smokes. 3.5 bathrooms, $350. Wow, I'm buying it. It's in a well-established neighborhood. The house requires new carpeting throughout. It's still got 1982 carpet and the first floor, and it needs a new garage door opener. 3 offers have already been made, and all were below the asking price of $350. That's all you know, okay, about the scenario. Now, the buyer agent, your buyers want to make an offer of $340. They are making an offer of $340. So you're going to start with, you know that their offer is $340. They've been pre-approved, so you already know that answer. The buyers would like to close in the shortest time possible. They want to quit closing, so we know that. Since they are moving from out of state and need a home for their family. Since there's some motivation right there. Since they're leaving their appliances in their current house, the buyers would like all of the appliances to be included. Is this a really typical scenario?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. And especially in Maine, people expect the appliances. So let's just, for argument's sake, say that the appliances are the washer and dryer and the kitchen appliances. Okay? The listing agent. Your sellers have raised their family in this house. And they have many friends and family in the area. Since their children are now grown, they no longer need this big house. And they've already purchased a house in Florida. Really typical scenario, right? 4-bedroom, 3.5-bath house, and they're going to Florida. They're gonna live in a little ranch. They would like to give all their appliances to their daughter because she just went through a divorce and she's hurting probably, right? They will not be moving until they've sold their current house. And although they'd like to get to Florida as soon as possible, they're ready to stand their ground regarding the price of $350. If we don't get our price, we're not selling. Is that a really common scenario?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. We don't have to sell. We don't get $350, we're not selling. And we're taking the appliances with us, right? So, that's all you know. Spend 2 minutes preparing. So that means you're going to write down some questions that you're going to need to ask the other party or your own client in your own head, because your client just only exists in your head, right? So listing agents, prepare some questions that you're going to need to ask your seller or the buyer agent, and buyer agents, prepare some questions that you're going to need to ask your buyer or the listing agent. 2 minutes.
Everybody's preparing. Didn't charge it.
Oh, didn't charge?
No. Take it back. It's at 5% now.
Crazy.
Oh,
Is it showing in the top? Just charging. Is it showing now? You might have to move it to another.
The block is hot.
Interesting. Okay, everybody prepared? Have you prepared? Okay, so now you're gonna move back and forth, you're gonna position, spaghetti, 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 spaghetti. 2 times. How many times?
Only 2.
2 times. How many times is the buyer agent going to present?
2.
How many times is the listing agent going to respond?
2.
At the end of 2 and 2, what are you gonna have?
Agreement.
Speak up.
Agreement.
What kind of an agreement?
A win-win.
A win-win.
Win.
Okay? So don't get too tricky. Just know that your goal is to go offer, counteroffer, counteroffer, come together. Right?
Okay.
So don't, you're not gonna go back and forth 6 times, which in real life we might. So for this purpose, you're gonna spend like the next 10 minutes being the buyer agent and the listing agent and in these roles, and I'm gonna be listening for my client, my buyer, my seller. My buyer is offering $340. My seller really wants to give the appliances to their daughter. Not we. Not my appliances. Not my daughter. Not my money.
So you don't say my client, you always say my buyer, my seller.
You can say my client, my buyer, or my seller.
Just know we client.
The client, the buyer, the seller, my client, my buyer, my seller. What you can't say is we, because it's not we. We're not part of it. Okay?
Now while
Does
we're
that make
doing
sense?
this, can we ask them questions too, like, what's motivating your client?
Yes, you've just been preparing.
Okay. But I have like things, questions.
So you
that
can,
way
so
we
as
use.
you're doing this off, so the buyer's gonna make an offer. Hey Karen, I have a great offer for you on your listing. It's $340, right? Carpets need to be, whatever, right? And then in that presentation of that offer, you're gonna be probably asking some of those questions that you've been writing down. And then when the seller receives the offer, seller agent, and they're gonna pretend to talk to their client, and they're gonna pretend to have questions for their client, and then they're gonna go back to the buyer agent, and they're gonna say, well, I probably ask some questions from the buyer agent based on what you've just written down, because you've been formulating some great questions to prepare for this negotiation, right? So, buyer agents speak first. You're gonna present that offer of $340 with what you know and any questions that you want, okay? Go. 10 minutes.
They're willing to sort of change the price.
I'm calling you now.
Hello.
Another big thing for my clients is just give me a call back. Just spoke with my sellers, and they
So I hear what you're saying, the pricing you offer, the $340, is something that the seller is, okay with.
That said, they understand
With the
that
stipulation that they want to keep all the appliances. Is that correct?
and they were hoping to offer.
Actually, the seller.
Good job.
Really,
See, that was where I was thinking of going.
And how many offers have they had?
Because I'm
Those
just
4 offers, how many of them have reached their asking price?
My potential buyers are
So for him, you're saying your clients want $350, but they've had 4 people that have gone.
So now I gotta go
going up to 345
property,
and
That is correct. I can go back to the house and honest
my client, they're really good at
Okay.
reasonable.
Yeah, just back up a little.
and also on the garage door.
They want to
they're willing to settle with them. Throughout the entire house.
Because now I gotta go back to the house.
For the closing fire for my fire.
So my sellers, that sounds really great.
In return for
They are
being able to take those
I have one more
licenses
thing.
and help
We want to
someone
buy a
else
place
from
where we
other
want
dogs.
to be able to
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no, this isn't your advising. This is my original. This is back
You know, some of the clients together.
So you're getting, so they want to be able to order the appliances and store them in their garage maybe prior to that, so that
That would work for
install
all
them.
parties.
Is there a, I'll write out
So, my buyer is in
Awesome, thank you. I look forward to give it the sauce to my seller. My client, the seller, I don't know. Also, he's a client of a seller of
You can do, yeah.
Interested in this?
You can do all. So for you, you're selling the house.
I don't think there's any way they can I can say my buyer 60 days, they can wait that essentially have to move twice. So please ask your seller if there's anything we can do to get the family moved in for the 30 days. Your offer on the appliances is extremely generous and it should be completely
That's what I was saying.
Mindset to be.
Yeah, I was looking forward to being an
Yes. Well, again, because we're talking to each other, so.
And now I'm here.
You can only go back a few times. There was actually
Your buyers are afraid and your sellers are afraid, so you have authority to act on their behalf, children in your life, or individuals.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I talked to my seller and they're saying, so like you're making that up, they are willing to work.
Like in
So
the-
now you come together and work under a grant.
Yeah. In the sense of just kind of using.
Oh, that would be excellent. You guys are awesome.
Like, how long should it go back and forth? It's just to discuss two things.
Hiring readers and whatnot.
So I guess we.
Yeah, I need to say, are you guys under contract?
Yes.
Are you guys under contract?
Almost.
Not yet?
We're getting there.
Okay.
We can do a 30-day close, but they, would like to counter our price at $340.
Downstairs or something like that.
But with the
Dropping this in the first.
Repairs being done and you pay closing costs.
And the garage door open.
That's always the big.
I can't imagine.
They don't care.
Listen, you guys are moving.
We'll fix the garage.
Yeah.
appliances and want to go to the.
Right, we're under contract. Yeah.
Okay, everything's under contract.
As
Alright,
long as our
awesome.
clients are reasonable.
They are.
So
yes. We have reasonable clients.
So what we're gonna do now is each pair is going to You can stand up or sit down, it's up to you. Present your negotiation and your win-win situation. If you want to tell us a little bit about how you got there, what the positions were on the way through, or if you just want to say this is where we ended up, it's up to you. So who wants to go first? Don't all jump at once. These guys, okay, these guys are going for, hold on, let me.
Oh, we're on camera now?
I'm gonna put you on camera because.
You're presenting. Sit that down.
Is that okay? I'm gonna turn this around, because, yeah. Oops. Okay, tell us how you, so who was the buyer agent?
I'm the buyer agent.
Okay.
So I made an offer of $340,000 and we need appliances since we're
Who's we? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. My client needs appliances.
Thank you.
Since they're moving from Madison.
My seller still really wants to give the appliances to their daughter. They've already promised it. And they're really not willing to move much on price. However, they offered a credit towards appliances for the buyer.
Great, how much?
$2,500.
$2,500 towards appliances.
That was going to be my counter.
But they still need 60 days to close.
60 days, so they counted at $350 with a $2,500 credit and a 60-day closing.
You didn't count it.
We didn't count it at 350. Nope, I dropped that ball. I didn't.
Well, I'm assuming they're still firm on their price at $350, and yet they gave in on a credit and a 60-day closing, and you want a 45-day closing and $340 and the appliance 30-day closing. Okay,
yeah, super fast.
So then
super
you went
fast.
back to. So now what? How did it go from there?
Let's see. I countered and I said that we really do need the 30-day closing because my client needs 30 days to close because they're moving. And my client, what did we say? They thought the offer on the appliances was extremely generous. My client does need to close in 30 days. Can you ask your client if there's anything they can do to make it happen?
And was your client willing to come up to $350 if they got the credit?
We said $345.
Oh, so you came back at $345 with a $2,500 credit and a still holding to the 30-day closing.
Really need it. And
then the seller says.
We ended up agreeing to it because we decided going to Florida was better in this snow. So we agreed.
The sellers agreed.
Yes.
To $345.
$345.
30-day closing.
$2,500 credit and appliances.
Credit. Yeah. Okay, is that a win-win?
Yeah. Win-win.
Okay. Good job, you guys.
If I was a seller, I would have bought my daughter the new appliances.
Right?
Me
okay,
too.
So let's see how this unfolds with some of these other teams. Who wants to be next?
I guess us.
Tony is super excited to be next. Okay, let's go.
I got a deal for you.
Who's the buyer? Who's the buyer agent?
All right, so I'm the buyer's agent, and we offered $340,000. And the reason we did that is because we knew we needed new carpet. It's a pretty big place. So we're thinking about $5,000 towards carpet, and we also wanted appliances. So since we weren't getting those, we figured $340 would be.
So you offered $340 without the appliances.
Right. So
okay.
Take off $10,000 to compensate for not getting appliances, and we need all new carpet. And as far as the garage door opener, we weren't too worried about that.
The buyers weren't too worried about that.
The buyers weren't too worried about that.
And so they dropped the appliances rate at the beginning rather than asking for the appliances at $340.
Yeah, because the $10,000 we saved, or the buyer saved, would have went towards that.
And then the seller came back and said
that we would give a credit.
The seller would
give a credit for the appliances, and they said no. They want the appliance.
How much credit were you going to give?
So I didn't think of that price. I kind of they wanted the ones that we had, so it was those appliances that we had, the same ones, or that the seller had.
So they came in at 340 and said they'll buy their own appliances. The seller came back at what?
Full asking.
350.
350.
And offered a credit?
Correct, and they denied that. The buyers denied it. So the seller offered to pay part of their closing costs as
Yeah.
well as the credit for the appliances.
So when we
Okay,
rejected,
how much closing costs?
Half of their closing costs.
Which is, I need a dollar amount.
Well, I guess at that point, we'll say 2,500.
So the seller said 350, 2,500 towards closing costs, and how much for appliances?
We'll say 3,000.
3,000. So now so the seller has actually come down 5,500.
Right.
And are you in agreement on the date?
Yes.
30 days.
30 days. So, and then the buyers.
But we're not recarpeting and we're not fixing the
Right,
garage.
because they didn't ask you to do that.
Well, he did want some
Okay.
carpet, the first floor carpet.
So how did you finally end up under contract?
That was the
The
final
closing
offer.
cost.
350, 2,500 closing costs, 3,000 for appliances, and close in 30 days.
Yes.
Is that a win-win?
Yes.
Win-win.
Yep.
Good job, you guys. I think I'm gonna go this way. Ooh. What do I got? You ready, guys? Over here, ladies. You wanna go next?
Ready.
You're on camera.
So I called Karen first and asked her when they wanted to close. And then our buyers put out an offer for $240 and keeping the appliances.
340.
Oh, sorry, $340 and keeping the appliances, and a 30 to 45 day closing, so that they could get to Florida sooner because we're pre-approved.
Mm-hmm. And my clients aren't in any rush to move to Florida. They're fine. That's where they eventually want to retire. But we had a conversation about it, just saying that that my clients, their daughter was just going through a divorce, and they really wanted to be able to give the appliances to them. And that since it is listed at $350, that and we've had some other offers. We decided to go with
350.
345.
I think I countered with that 345. You said 350 and no appliances.
She held her ground the first time.
Yeah.
So then you came back and said 345.
So I talked about
Buyers.
the daughter, and then I told her about my clients wanting to raise their family in the home, but that the daughter has allergies, and so we're willing to go to 345 if they replace all of the carpet, and if they let us order new appliances and store them in their garage for a week before closing.
Okay, and what did the seller say?
Yes, I said that's absolutely fine. 45 days sounds reasonable, but they could put the that 345 that I checked with my clients. 345 was fine. That we thank them for being able to transfer the appliances, and that we would change the carpets of equal value.
Prior to closing.
Yeah, prior to closing.
So you're under contract at 345.
Mhm.
Seller's going to put in a bunch of carpet.
Yeah.
And seller's taking the appliances, and
Yeah.
you're letting her store some in the garage.
Yep.
Is that a win-win? Depends on how much the carpet costs.
Yeah, right. I know. That's why I said equal value. I'm picturing it.
$45,000, the
Yeah.
340 would have been a better deal, right?
Yep. I was like, wait, was that the
But
whole
my ticket's
house,
still
or was
the
that
best.
like the first floor? Was that like one room, or
Yeah.
was it
First floor.
That's
Good
right.
job, you
After I said
guys.
that.
That's awesome. Okay, these gentlemen right here. Where are we? There you go. Buyer agent, raise your hand. Please, the buyer agent.
So my client offered 350.
No. You offered 350? No. 340.
We offered 340
Right.
originally, correct? Yes, yeah. So we offered 340, but we wanted the carpet to be replaced. The appliances was pretty huge, kind of a catching point. So countered offered back.
The seller?
Correct.
How did you counter offer back?
You guys were set at 350.
Well, we were, my clients were very set on 350.
Yeah.
Even though they'd had a few offers in the past that were lower than that, they were really adamant about receiving 350. And they wanted the appliances to go to their daughter. But they did agree to paying half of the closing costs and also close in 30 days.
Well, and how much is the closing cost?
It's approximately we figured half the closing cost would be $5,000.
$5,000. So they're giving a seller credit of $5,000, closing at $350 in 30 days. And they get to take the appliances to their daughters?
Right.
Yes, and the repairs are going to be done to the garage door and the carpet.
The seller's doing that?
Uh-huh.
So you came back, really? So you're replacing the carpet, repairing the garage door, giving them $5,000 towards closing costs. And that was the final offer to you, or that was your final counter?
Correct.
And that's what you're under contract for?
Correct.
Is that a win-win?
Yep.
It is for you. I'm not sure you got what you wanted.
Well, they did get the
They got the appliances.
$350,000.
They got $350, which when they pay closing costs, it's actually $345. Just know that.
No, absolutely.
When you make an offer.
But they got to take every
in their
appliance
mind,
out of
it's
the house.
$350. It's selling for $350, and yet they're really like netting $345 plus they're replacing the carpet. So.
And they are closing in 30 days, and they get to move on with their life, and
To
the daughter
Florida,
gets
to
the
Florida.
appliances.
Yeah. Win-win. Seller's happy.
I say
buyer's
yes.
happy.
Win-win for the
All right,
seller.
let's say. Good job, you guys. All right. Guess we're gonna turn this back this way for a minute. Was that fun?
Well, I guess I'm the only one that lost in the room.
I don't know if you lost. Hey,
No.
if sellers are happy, like, sounds like you got talked into the whole Florida motivation thing, right?
I think he also did some good negotiating with his clients as far as there's been 4 people that have come in, and every offer has been under what you're asking.
Yeah.
And so if you want that golden
Oh,
number.
you went back to your seller and go, you keep getting offers that are less than $350. Clearly, you're starting to see that nobody's willing to pay $350 for your house. You kind of have to give a little bit.
So
Yeah,
you-
so you got the deal together for them.
That's right.
Yeah, so that is a win.
That's
Good
right.
job.
Yeah.
Okay. Negotiate a counteroffer. Okay, so we have another scenario. This is not the same house. So a lot of times when we go to this next exercise, people think it's the same house with the carpet and the $350, and it's not.
Okay.
Okay. It's a whole different house. And if you were the buyer agent before, did you lose your co-bro? Is he coming back?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
There he is, Alan. So if you were the buyer agent before, now you're the listing agent, and vice versa. They want us to switch up partners. Do you guys feel like switching? Maybe turn the
we're
person
comfortable.
behind you, or you want to stay with the same partner?
Doesn't
You're good. They want to stay at the same place. Okay. Take a few minutes to review the scenario and the information under your particular role. All right. Using what you've learned in this session, once again, you're going to prepare. What are we going to do to prepare for your negotiation?
Ask questions and listen.
Ask great questions. Get to motivation and listen to the answers. That's your prepare. You're going to prepare for 2 minutes, and then you're going to practice positioning. So this time you're negotiating a counteroffer. The other time it was an offer, right? So this is where we're at. You're going to present it. You're going to position back and forth 2 times to a win-win. How many times?
2.
5. How many times does each party present?
Twice.
2.
2. Right. On behalf of their client. Okay. So buyer agent, your client has found the house they love and it's in the neighborhood they want. It's at the top of their price range, and it does need some work, updating the kitchen and the master bathroom. Isn't that always the way? It's the top of your price range and it needs a bunch of work. Like, on Property Brothers, that doesn't fly. Like, if it needs work, it's got to be below your price range. So this one's at the top and it needs work. Your client makes an offer on the property and the seller's agent says, I must warn you that we've gotten several offers and yours is pretty low. So clearly we know that it's not a full price offer, right? So this is all vague because they're not giving us the numbers this time. Now, on the listing agent side, there's a little bit of a different motivation from the last one. The last one, Florida, they didn't care when they got there. This one is your sellers need to move within 45 days. How many days? 45. Due to a job transfer, they have to move. This is a dream seller because they have to move. You feel that you've priced the house competitively. You're aware that the house needs some updating, but the sellers don't see the need because the house was just fine for them. They're like, we like the rust-colored shag carpet. It's been fine for us for the past 35 years. We raised 14 kids on this shag carpet. You know what I mean? Like, sellers sometimes think that way. There have been multiple offers, and the other offers are still good. They're still standing. They have not expired. But the timing may not work for the seller on any of those offers. Because why?
45 days, you gotta go.
45 days, and the other agent probably didn't
Ask for a lot of good questions. Or find the motivation.
And the latest offer meaning this one, is lower than the asking price. So it's intimated that maybe the other ones are high, but the timing's bad. We don't know that for sure, so you might have to make this up. You have let the buyer's agent know, I must warn you that we've gotten several offers and your offer is pretty low. So put yourself in those two roles. That's all you know. And if it's helpful for you, I'll give you a number.
Yep.
The house is listed at 400. Okay? And we can't know what the other offers are. And then you have to decide where your offer came in. We know that it's low, and we know that the other offers the 45-day timing was not ideal. I mean, whatever they offered for timing was not ideal to the preferred 45. Okay? So, again, the buyer agent has already made an offer. Let's say that it's $375.
That's not a lot of room to work.
The seller says, huh?
That's not a lot of room to work. I was thinking like 350.
350.
And you're a real low baller.
Okay, we're gonna go with the low ball. We're going 350. Your offer is pretty low. It's 350. And the seller's agent has already come back and said your offer is pretty low, and we have several other offers standing. Okay, now whose turn is it? Buyer agent, go. Buyer, seller, win. Win. Okay.
There you go, buddy. I'm listening.
Please bring me your
350.
400,
350.
What is your
Yeah.
Okay, I've spoken to the clients. You know, they do really enjoy the neighborhood. The work that the house needs is a stumbling block, you know, the 35-year-old carpet is a problem. The master bath, the kitchen, really tough. But they are able to meet your 45-day closing.
So what about,
They are able to come up to 365. And this offer is not contingent upon financing. They have 365 and they can spend what they're offering. They can pay cash.
Well, I mean, we made the offer at 350 because it needs.
With no updates, right?
With no updates, so.
And the seller says that's too high, and then the buyer says.
Well, that is pretty low, but it's because, there's gonna be quite a bit more.
Seller could be 65.
It's cash. 30 days as well.
yeah, there's 30 days.
Okay.
So it really covers for $365,000. Alright.
And my client says the lowest that they're willing.
Let me
Motivated, so I think, yeah, I think I'm 45 days. So, pretty sure that, you know, it would be, kind of, would probably come back as, I'm on the phone, 385.
So you're okay with me going back to my buyer and telling them that your 385 is
If your client can,
Do you think you could ask me, like, if you have 3 other offers that are higher?
Okay. All right.
All right, you got it.
Basically,
timing, my sellers really
work with.
Well, I mean,
With them, updating the kitchen and the master bedroom. No, I mean.
that's up to the buyer.
The buyer's going to.
Absolutely. Yep. 385 and another 45 days. Or 30 days. 30 days. I need to be, so we need to close. We need to close by 30 days.
no inspection.
So I guess basically.
And I said no.
Yeah, I rejected it.
You rejected 350.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not
Okay, so I'm going
350 or 375 is the split difference.
Plenty of.
Yeah, so, okay, so we all have been under. Close.
So it's 15 under. Where they're at.
What's the seller office under? Would you find?
Oh, it's just this.
Yeah,
they probably.
That would make them.
You're making a $15,000 concession.
Go back and
Start in cost your offers
The other ones have that.
to renovate
Your offers
kitchen,
too,
one bedroom. Would your sellers be
All right.
open to cost? Splitting the closing costs?
Paying half of the other.
Yes.
So approximately $2,500. Yeah, they'll do
I
that.
talked to my sellers.
Actually, we can do it 30 days. So,
They're also accepting your offer even though it's below, they're looking for like 388 for 30 days.
We're at the initial.
For the 30 days.
It seems so fun to negotiate like
380 for 30 days.
Well, you gotta make it that.
scenarios, you know what I mean, to truly feel like, you know.
Oh, well, you can disagree, right? So we disagree.
You know what I mean? To be like, okay, so what is that look like?
It's a lot, yeah, that's why I was starting at 375.
It's like, man, that's
You
a
counter
pretty awesome renovation, you know, that.
And it's worth 400.
Right, and everything's going well.
Hello, this is Tracy.
Yeah. So,
Deal.
Well, I don't think the print code works. They're gonna have to go through and change it all together.
You have to, like, I think you would have to, like, separate it from separate.
when you mentioned the job, like, oh, we don't work with them.
Yeah.
You mentioned the job.
Yeah. If there's something, yeah. Then I have to,
What is
It's part of the
Your office door?
vision.
Hey, how you doing? What are your
Given
I know,
because that might help soften the level of comes when they come off this $5,000 less than $7,000 less. I mean, they've been carrying off as if they're.
Yeah, okay, so you
You go into conversation with the seller and everything.
you're not going back. Yeah. Is there another version back there that we know about?
Yeah.
We can help with this. And, I understand, then we just know.
Yeah.
There was a couple of days before
Yeah.
back to
Did it?
the buyers that was $4,000 under was okay. It took me time to catch up with the seller and do the work schedules and everything, but I think the couple day wait, probably the buyers were wondering, oh geez, she
Sometimes making buyers wait is a good stretch.
We can
Okay,
do-
you guys all win-win? We good?
I could.
Oh, everybody's on their phone.
Always
You know what, I watched the
Oh, you're right.
listing,
Right.
so I have that in my head already.
But the buyer.
I'm gonna clean the closet this weekend.
I know.
Okay, guys. Let's reel it in. Everybody put your phone away.
We were using it for education.
Oh, you are? Okay.
For
Good.
real.
So it's almost 11:30.
Oh.
So we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to go this way for now. Oops. Do you all four want to present your findings? Do you want to wrap it up and have, I don't know, do you guys, what's in your schedule, 11:30, or could you go till 11:40 if we needed to? Is it open? Who needs to leave 11:30?
I do, but I can stay a few minutes.
Okay, so why don't you present your win-win first, and
Okay.
then after this, we're wrapping it up, so. What you got?
All right, so I'm the buyer's agent. So my client, their initial offer was for $350,000. And Alan?
I asked for highest and best. She offered 365. My clients weren't able to do 365. They wanted 380.
My clients did not want to pay $380. They were willing to modify their closing date to accommodate his clients for $372,500.
And my clients accepted, so they could move.
So the closing, that you were able to meet their closing date, which was the trigger that made them accept the lower offer. Good job. What do you guys think? Okay, who's next? Right here?
I guess.
So I'm the buyer agent, and my client offered $350 to start with, and Cody is the listing agent.
So, I said 350 was way too low, a $50,000 difference, and I expressed to her that we had more offers, but that she was the lowest, and the most important was really time for us was a big thing, so she would know that we need to get out of there, and so.
How did you counter?
We countered back at 390.
And what
with
kind of closing date?
Was it 30 day? 45 day closing day.
And any other terms in that negotiation?
Nope, just 390, 45
they
day closing.
Okay, so now you're at and what was your original offer, 60-day closing, or?
Yes.
Okay, so now you're at 390 with 45, and how did your clients respond?
My client said no, that that's still too high, that they would have to put a lot of work into it to be livable for their family. And they did come back with 385, 45 closing day, and the seller to pay $2,500 towards their closing costs.
Which would give them some money to put some upgrades in.
You know, it kind of
So 385 with 2,500 in closing costs, closing in 45 days, and the seller said?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Done. Win-win?
Win-win.
Sellers got to close on time, and the buyers got a little bit of a deal. Who wants to go over here?
Ladies, she offered $350. My seller said no. We already have 3 full price offers.
Oh, we can't
on the
say
table.
full price.
Oh,
No.
we
Can't.
have 3 higher offers.
Can't say anything about the other offer?
No, we have 3
You can't say if
others.
it's higher?
Even if they give you passion?
Okay, you can't, oh, all right.
You can just say
I'm
there
just
are
asking, I'm like,
offers.
You know, I mean, you can say we have some offers that are stronger.
We have
Um,
a couple stronger offers already on the table. So we said no full price.
And I.
My seller said.
And then I had asked her, I said,
Okay, so hold on. Remember when we're talking about terms, so price is not the only thing we're negotiating. We're negotiating price, we're negotiating conveyances, we're negotiating time frames, we're negotiating, so you said full price and countered on.
And, what do we,
Cause you initially said 350 closing in how many
Yeah,
days?
350. Well, she didn't, I think that we started on not giving days, and
Okay.
then she asked me if we had other offers, why
Yeah.
had we not taken
Why
them?
had you not taken them? Because you keep saying that there's other offers
Yeah.
that are stronger.
And
she
the
had
answer
said
is?
that,
Because
that
I need
45
Can't
days.
tell you.
45
Can't
days.
tell you.
Oh, no?
Oh, really?
No,
What?
no.
How are we supposed to negotiate
Okay.
anything?
Are we supposed to negotiate with Fine. My seller
Well, I mean,
needs
you
to
have to
leave
do
in 45 days.
That's
So-
good information. That's very helpful information.
My
So that
seller
she can,
needs
I
to
can't
leave
ask
within
that.
45 days.
you can ask that. You
But
can't
just
say
not in
that
relation
the
to
other
the other
offers are for
offers.
60 days, but you can say, my
Oh, yeah.
seller really wants to close in less than 45 days because that would make your offer much more attractive if you could have your
Yeah.
buyers close in under 45 days.
Okay.
Like you can say something like that.
Okay.
Because it's a counter offer. You just can't say what the other offers are. You cannot disclose the terms, any term of another offer.
Okay. Your
Without
offer
the
would be
written consent of
stronger
both
if it was
parties.
45 days.
Okay, yeah, so, all right. And then, I did mention that, my clients thought that there needed to be some work done, to the property. And so we discussed it and we came back at $375, to give them some room to work to do some improvements. But we also offered them, a 30-day because my clients could actually move faster, and that would help her out, her
Okay.
clients out.
So 375 with a 30-day closing, and the seller said,
The seller says yes.
okay, so they really needed to be at that job in 45 days. So closing in 30 days gives them an extra 2 weeks
Yeah.
in
Mhm.
wherever they're moving to, right? And so they're willing to take $25,000 less in order to get there where they needed to be in time.
My clients could upgrade what they felt that they needed to, and, yeah.
Is that a win-win? Good job, gentlemen.
My clients have offered, $350,000 on a home that's, listed at 400, which is at the top of their price range, and
So, my clients,
And 350 and closing when?
closing in 30 days.
Oh, you offered to close in 30 days, okay.
so my clients, counteroffered with $385, also to close in 30 days, with no improvements to the house, and the offer to, pay half of the closing costs, $2,500 to the buyer.
Okay, so the seller came back and said, we'll go 385. We like your 30-day closing, because remember, you want to affirm and confirm and
Correct.
agree on the things that you like. Thank you so much. They really are excited about your 30-day closing. However, your price is really low. They're willing to come down a whole $15,000 to 385 if you can close in 30 days, and they'll kick in
Half the
$2,500 towards your closing costs.
Correct.
Closing costs are, just so you guys know, like closing costs today can be like $8,000 or $10,000. So just be aware of that. Especially on a $400,000 house, could be a lot. So it's not uncommon to see sellers paying $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 in closing costs. So you $385, $2,500 in closing costs. We like the 30 days. You went back to the seller, and the buyer said, back to the buyer.
I was thrilled with that.
Thrilled with 385.
Yep, it was they understood that they made an offer that was considerably
Super low.
Super low. They understood that. It's part of the negotiating.
They're just like
They tried to
lowballing,
tried to
throwing
lowball
against
it.
the wall.
And,
Yeah.
and they're very happy with the,
385, they feel like they got a deal, and they get 2,500 towards their closing costs.
they think it's fair, and they're in the neighborhood they want to be in, and they have the ability to close in 30 days, which allows the seller's client to get to Florida and move on with life.
Perfect. Win-win times 4. We good? Okay. Good job, you guys. So, see if I can spin this back. I don't even know if people can see that. So that is Ignite Negotiate the Deal. The last thing is just putting it all together. So tell me,
Before we just talk about your next Ignite, which really isn't up to me, let's talk about today's class. What did you learn? What ahas are you going to take away that you weren't even in your thought process before you got here? Tell me that you learned something. What?
To not say we. I guess I was under the impression that I was part of this buying and selling team, and I'm not.
You're not.
I'm a representative.
Thank you. And to not say we and to keep yourself detached, do you think that helps keep your emotions in check?
Absolutely.
Right? It helps you to stay detached. And when you watch that video, if you ever go back and watch that video with Dave talking about the chandelier, they're not saying we. They're saying my client, my seller, my buyer, because we are co-brokes. And this is a relationship, and this is a relationship, but the negotiation is between the seller and the buyer, and it's not we. So that's a really, thank you for saying that you picked up on that, because it's important. And I mean, I negotiate with people all the time who've been in the business 30 years who will throw the we at me. And I had one last year that there was a private road that needed to be regraded and in order for my buyer to close, and we wanted to make sure that it was going to be done before closing. And the other broker would say to me, we're going to get that screened and packed down, and we're going to make sure it's done. And he kept saying it, and so finally I said, Fred, are you actually working on this road with the seller? Because I'm confused. You keep saying we. He's like, oh no, I mean my seller's kind of like, okay. I just didn't know what your relationship was with the seller, because he literally made me think he was going to fix the road. And I wasn't being smart. I was just asking for clarity. I'm like, are you is your relationship with the seller such that you actually have the equipment and you're going to be screening the gravel on the road? Okay, just thank you, because I can talk about that in my class. It's not we. That's okay. Other than the we, which I love, thank you. What else did you learn? Anything?
Asking questions.
Asking great
Asking
questions.
Yeah.
Did you think that asking great questions was a part of negotiation?
Yes.
Yeah. But
Just good to practice it. So.
yeah.
Yeah. What else did you learn today about negotiation or about anything else?
Always circling back to the motivation. Always.
And when you take bold, this is going to be a recurring theme in every class of bold and in every script that you learn that was written by Diana Kokoska, who's the script master. She's constantly telling you to refer back to motivation. So, and we do that, do that with other relationships in your life, not just your clients, right? What else did you learn?
Keep the goal on site.
And what's the goal usually?
Sign
Signed contract.
So are we going to get hung up on the chandelier or the washer dryer or the carpet or the roof? Are we going to get hung up on any of that? Are we going to let that stand in the way of getting to an agreement? No. And what else did you learn about how Keller Williams likes to negotiate?
On the phone.
Or face to face.
On the phone, face to face. And you gotta be louder, dude.
Win-win.
Win-win.
Ah.
Win-win or no deal. It's in our value statement. It's in our Y4C2Ts. The W in the Y4C2Ts is win-win or no deal. So we're always looking for a win-win. We're looking for a win-win when we're dealing with each other. We're looking for a win-win when we're dealing with our buyers and our sellers.
I mean, is it our responsibility as a buyer's agent to worry about the seller's
Well, so that's a great question,
motivation?
right?
Or their
Well, you
fiduciary
may or may
duties?
not know that you don't have fiduciary duties to the other party. This is a great question. However, if we're in a situation where we could really take advantage of the other side because we're a superior negotiator or we're more educated or we have a stronger client and the other client doesn't know what they don't know, and do we want to leverage our superior abilities and take advantage of the other party?
Well, no. But
Kind of, you might want to.
But
I
you
mean,
also,
let's be
you also
honest.
you don't want to assume that you know what that other client wants.
What
or
the
needs,
win
or
is,
what's best.
right?
Exactly.
So, do you want to railroad somebody into a situation
where you know that you've just taken advantage of them and exploited them?
No.
Would that be a win-win?
No.
Would that be MKW culture?
No.
No. So there are gonna be agents out there that say, yeah, get whatever you can, lowball the heck out of them and get what you can get for your client because that's your duty. Fine line. In Keller Williams, we are a company built on culture, and the number one thing in the beginning of our culture is win-win or no deal. So we're not gonna.
So do you walk away from a
do
deal
that.
if you know that another agent is not
Sometimes we
representing
have to
their
walk
client?
away from deals to do the right thing, because it's always do the right thing. So that's a little soapbox. And as Keller Williams agents, I mean, you need to know that. You need to embrace the culture. So win-win or no deal. Goal is to sign contract. Keep your emotions between the lines. Focus on the plan, not the problem. These are, I'm just going to start reciting bold laws right now. And don't be attached to the outcome, because it might require that you walk away and do the right thing.
We don't walk away, our client wants.
No, you might need to. You might be, yes.
No, good one, Alan. It's not we.
You might need to walk away from a seller or a buyer.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought, yeah.
No, sometimes you need to
I see
walk
what you're
away.
saying.
If you're dealing with a builder who's a really unethical builder, and you know that they're building things that are not to code, and they're asking you to represent them, you might need to walk away and not represent that builder. Because not in culture, it's not good. Thank you all.
Thank you.
You guys know that Ignite tomorrow is not in here. It's in PC Street. Go get them. See you on Thursday at Bold.